Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. I have just received a message that Hangouts on Air is going away later this year. Okay, just a second. Let me do the sound check. Just a moment. I have just received a message. Okay, there we are. Okay, you guys can see me. So what just happened is that I've just pressed go live, and then suddenly Hangouts on Air gave me a message, a pop-up message, which it didn't show before, which says Hangouts on Air is going away later this year. For quick streaming, try youtube.com/webcam. Oh yeah, okay. I guess what's going to happen here. I think they figured out that Google Hangouts is so stonkingly successful, bringing people online and giving them news broadcasts much more interesting than the evening news, that they quickly have to shut it down and find something that's probably going to be crap. But anyway, that's for later. Today, thankfully, Hangouts is still working, and this show is going to be packed, absolutely packed with good news and victories and fantastic progress all around. So I would like to launch straight into this. And first of all, what I first of all would like to do, and I hope that today I can offer you enough that you think it is worthwhile. I would like to invite people to support me on Patreon, because my expenses are going to explode. And look here, I've just dropped under 200 supporters, which makes me very, very sad. So if you guys could please support me, I hope that today I can prove to you that I'm doing, good stuff, very, very hard work. Please support me. You can either support me monthly on Patreon, or else you can also set up, for example, a standing order, and then we save the 5% Patreon fee. And here on my website, you will see the Tiger Invest in Progress. You will see also my bank details for US dollars, British pounds, and euros. So in other words, I'm sorry to have to start with this, but I will have to travel to London very soon. I'll have to file my case. I also would like to do a bit more traveling and help some victims. And, I really need some help. So if you think that what you hear today is something that should be happening in the world and should be happening more, then please support me. Okay. Now, there's many other ways you can support me and help me a lot without it costing any money whatsoever. Okay. So if you don't have money, but you really want to help, what I am appealing for is I would like to have email contact lists. Okay. And I would like to have press contact lists and I will talk more about that, the ones I already have, which countries I already have good press lists for. But also I'm putting out an appeal now, because I am planning to launch the tsunami email campaign again. And last time the tsunami email campaign aimed to inform every country of the world. And for that, I put all the countries into one big list, and I ordered them according to population. And I think every country that had more than 1 million, if I remember correctly, they are very, very small countries around the world, but all the countries that had at least 1 million inhabitants, or something like that, were informed. So I put them into one big order, and I started with the smallest countries, and we got halfway through that list. And at the halfway point, I had to abort it, because it was actually the week after I had just informed Switzerland, and Switzerland went nuts. And I was so machine gunned, I had to abort it because I would not have survived. So it sounds like we tread on some toes. But anyway, that was in 2017. And now in 2019, we're coming back with a vengeance. This time, we're not just informing, things like governments and embassies and stuff like that. Oh, no. We inform them, and we inform the entire national press of that country. So what I really, really need is I need press lists for all the countries in the world, of their national newspapers, of their radio stations, their TV stations, and so on. So ideally, for every country of the world, there are only something like 180 or 200 countries out there. So, if people help me, it shouldn't be too hard. But then we're not just informing, the governments, plus the embassies, plus the press. I also would like to, with your help, inform all the, big hospitals in a country, all the doctors, the police officers, the ones you can gather. So doctors, police officers, lawyers, and psychiatrists. So I'm putting together one big, information bundle, and we will just dump it on them. All the information about directed energy weapon attacks, gang stalking, housebreaking, hacking that goes with the targeting program, non-consensual implants, neurotechnology attacks, biorobotization, remote neural monitoring, the whole freaking lot that used to be classified. We'll just dump it on them. And if we have formally informed them, none of them can ever again legally claim that they did not know. In other words, it really blows apart the entire strategy the empire of dumb as fuck seems to, pursue to this day, which is to just go, la, 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 we don't know about this, we don't know about this, and just keep claiming mental health and, paranoia and schizophrenia and shit like that, which is absolutely nonsensical from so many, points of view, scientifically speaking. But nevertheless, they do that. However, if you can prove that there was a written formal, information package submitted to that hospital or that police station or that legal firm or that, psychiatric hospital, then they can't claim that anymore. So if you want to sue these people's pants off, if they put you into fraudulent psychiatric treatment, then you are in much stronger position. So this will be the tsunami campaign, 2.0, and I want them to literally regret the day they stopped me from completing the first. Really. I want them to feel so sorry that they fucked me over in 2017 that they will have no words to express how very sorry they are for themselves. So this is the victory, the big victory we're building up to. Okay, so I want you guys to get going and make these lists. Every time you feel pissed off or feel bored, just look up some doctors or lawyers or police stations in your country or some media outlets, anybody who you would like to inform. The letters will be very polite, very informative, and will create legal liability should these people pull any bullshit afterwards. Okay, certainly within the European Union, emails count as legal documents. So when you send an email, the fact that you used email to inform somebody counts the same as if you had sent a registered letter. Okay. So, and email delivery is actually very, very good when, the NSA doesn't happen to interfere with it. So you can typically rely on it. And also, I will not be the only person sending these emails. On certain days, we'll have as many people as possible send these emails. So, if police stations get about 100 emails all talking about directed energy weapons, it will register. Okay, which, there will be one day in the year where they will be exposed to an email flood that they might, claim to be spam, but it's not, because we're informing them about crimes against humanity. So out of all the evil out there, a lot of unread emails in your inbox are the least. Okay, so anyway, this is what I'm planning down the pipeline. But now let me show you the little victory that I already had. So let me actually, hang on. Let me show you the other one. So yes, let's start with this one. So a big victory here. And let me show you where you can find it on my website. Let me share my screen. And this is really good because it's already showing results, actually, even when the results are kind of not immediately obvious. Okay, so what you should be seeing is my website now. And if you scroll down to this one here, interviews, press and media, the one with all the microphones, if you click on there, you will find the very first press release that I have compiled down here. And it's the first thing here. This was sent originally on the 5th of June 2019, and I mentioned it before. And it was a big information campaign to inform people about the results of the very first 15 affidavits submitted to the Global Affidavit Survey, which basically proved, even though these people were coming from, several different continents, right? US, UK, Russia, Japan, they were all all saying the same thing. 93% said that their targeting hadn't stopped since it started, even if targeting went back to 1969. Only one person said that it had, right? 80% said that they knew other victims. 100% complained about surveillance, over 70 about housebreaking, 93 about stalking, rounded 90% about hacking, rounded 90% about their income being sabotaged, 80% about partnership sabotage, over 70% about assaults with directed energy weapons, 60%, more than half complain about implants or voice to skull or image to skull or neurotech assaults. And also more than half say that the police didn't help them and the lawyers didn't help them. And keep in mind that the remaining 40% might have just not contacted any police officers or lawyers because they knew better. Okay, so this is now official, and every little X that you see here, okay, every little tick is under oath with a signed signature. In other words, there isn't really much chance to explain this away. In other words, it is game over. Okay, now what I did, and I started doing it the day after I made this analysis, I put out this press release, which you can read here, and then I started informing countries' press outlets, okay? So here on the 5th of June, I informed the UK, US, Germany, France, and Belgium. Then the next day, the Netherlands and Switzerland, okay? Then thanks also to all the people who contributed. I have a good list for Canada now, a good list for Denmark, a press list, and one that I just got in today, one for Norway. And if you look at the one for Norway, it's impressive. I mean, if a native speaker gets going, right, sits down one afternoon, just look at how many Norwegian press outlets this gentleman from Norway actually accumulated here, okay? So this is what I really want, okay, guys? Because once we have these email lists, we can just blast them with information, okay? And Norway is a small country comparatively in Europe, right? But still, there are so many regional newspapers. I mean, here it's in alphabetic order. It just goes on for pages and pages and pages, you know? And they have all been informed now today, so it should be in their inbox tomorrow. So what I really would like you to do to help me is for your country, or if you have any further additions to the countries I already have, any press outlets that I haven't listed, things like, I don't know, Playboy or Young Miss or, the Horse and Hound magazine, I am more than happy to inform them about crimes against humanity, even if it's just a good read for the editor, knowing full well they're not going to report about it, right? But it doesn't matter. It's about informing people and having a reason to inform them. So if you have any additions to the country I already have here, please send them to me. And if you have, if you're a native speaker and could generate a press list for countries I haven't listed yet, then please do so. And I ask you to use either Microsoft Excel or OpenOffice Calc. So that's the OpenOffice's version of Excel, and make put them into columns. I don't really need the circulation numbers, but it would be nice to know if it's nationwide papers or regional papers or something special papers are topical things. Could be anything. Could be the Norwegian version of Financial Times. And then one column should be the name, one column the email. And in the cases where you really cannot find a contact email, neither for the editor nor as a general contact email, it's also okay to put the contact form, but that will be a lot of work for me, to go through the contact form and always do copy and paste. So I very much prefer these email lists, because once I have a column, I can just highlight the column and do a copy and paste straight into my email client, and all these email addresses will be picked up automatically. So if you could give me, these a 3-column Excel sheet or just 2 columns with name and email, that would be perfect, okay? And on here, on this page that I just showed you on the press list, you can see, so this is the one with the microphones, you can see which countries I've already covered, okay? And this is pretty good, right? I mean, there are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 countries In 10 countries, the major newspapers cannot claim ignorance. And if I actually totted up how many millions of people that would, equate to, it's pretty good. And of course, even if these news outlets do not report, we have done our best to inform them. Okay, we have done our best. So at that point, the ball is in their court, right? And good luck to them. How they're gonna, defend themselves in court if one person in that country sues them for the cover-up of crimes against humanity, right? So this is what it's about. It's about creating a legal bind, about creating legal liability for the people who really should know better than, covering this stuff up and silencing this, or even worse, like, the New York Times and other things, putting out smear articles. Well, that is just inviting a class action. It is literally inviting having your little, paper printing outfit shut down for forever after. Right? Well, if they want to do that, everybody is at their personal liberty to play Russian roulette, whichever way they want to. And, that's their God-given right, but, they shouldn't be surprised. So anyway, this is a very, very big victory. And, you have no idea how absolutely great it feels when you get an email from somebody you have never met before, and they're like, here's a list. I've just made a list for you. There you go. I am blown away by the support I got from these people. Thank you to all. Thank you to all who contributed, because you have done a great service to humanity. I wouldn't have the time and I wouldn't have the language skills to make a list for Denmark or Norway, or it would take me literally ages using Wikipedia and clicking my way through. And you have helped me greatly. And once you have this list, we can use it from henceforth. So it's absolutely amazing. So that's what I wanted to say. This was a great victory. The press release is already out. You can look at the date. And if you're in one of these countries, and if you're a victim, you can now contact those press outlets and say, oh, by the way, you can quote this press release, and you can kind of do the Me Too thing. You can say, oh, well, you received the press release from the joint investigation, right, about these affidavits. Oh, by the way, here I am in Copenhagen or in Oslo, and I am a victim. So here's my story. Will you report it? Okay. And at that point, the journalists will have a very hard time explaining to you why they're not reporting it. Okay. So this is kind of kicking the door in for you so that you can walk through, And on that note, talking about the press reporting about it, there is, really good progress. So here, for example, the people who have already reported about it, let me just share my screen just a second. Here we are. So there was a very good article I would like to point out about this already. And this is the News Inside Out site, which is run by Alfred Lambremont Weber. And he has put out an article here saying joint investigation team's new targeting affidavit study foreshadows how human population may be impacted by 5G EMF targeting, constituting crimes against humanity. Okay, now I really like the connection between directed energy weapon attacks and 5G, because we all know that 5G is an integrated weapon system. Now, what is so amazing about this article, though, is that here he draws on the legal framework of the of Article 7 of the International Criminal Court Statute, okay, which 100 nations have ratified and granted universal jurisdiction to their courts to prosecute those crimes which are defined crimes against humanity. And then he says Article 7, and he quotes it. So I encourage you, I will put the link into the description below. I encourage you to read this and also quote this paragraph in your court cases, because this is exactly what it's about. So for the purposes of this statute, crimes against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack. Now, I guess here in the grammar, it means a systematic attack with knowledge of the attack. And it doesn't mean directed only against civilian populations which have knowledge of the attack. Because in this case, you know, this grammatical ambiguity might catch us out because the civilian population is mostly completely oblivious of the attack, obviously, right? But I don't think this is what they mean here. So anyway, the ones that count are murder, and there are many cases of murder, extermination, which is what I'm in, enslavement, what I'm in, deportation or forcible transfer of populations. Well, when you get to the stage that you have 5G antenna literally gunning people in city centers and the civilian population has to flee into the villages and the forests, this is exactly what you have, right? Imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law. Well, you know, imprisonment, you basically are locked up in your own body. And then we have torture. We also have rape and sexual slavery and forced prostitution. Well, this is what I'm in, right? As people keep raping me by remote control. Persecution against any identifiable group or collectivity on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, religious, gender, as defined in paragraph 3, blah, 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 and other grounds that are universally recognized as impermissible under international law, you know. And forced disappearance of persons, well, you know, think of all the children who are being kidnapped by, for example, the networks of the FBI and sold into satanistic, you know, sacrifice, also known as murder. The crime of apartheid, well, we don't really have apartheid as we know it. What we have is two parallel societies where one segment of society has no rights. The police doesn't protect them, the courts don't protect them, lawyers don't help them, and doctors don't help them. So that, I mean, if that isn't apartheid, then what the hell is? Okay, and then other inhumane acts of similar character, intentionally causing great suffering or serious injury to body or to mental or physical health. Right? Now, and then there are these qualifications that you can read. And this is also the results that I've just put up there, okay, with some more information and also on 5G. And I really like this article. As always, I mean, Alfred Weber was a war crimes tribunal judge. And with the eye of a judge, he really put his finger on the issues. So I very, very much like this article. And that is also a victory to really bring it down. So for the first time, combine, you know, the 5G weapon system with actual real life affidavits of the victims of a parallel system that is pretty much identical, which is the targeting system. Okay, so there we are. So that is another success, but there are many, many, many more successes to report today. Okay, another very, very big success, and I would like to show you how to get there. Okay, so let me share my screen and show you, because on Friday I was attending a court case that was a big, big, big success. Okay, not my attending, but rather the outcome of the court hearings. So let me share my screen and let me show you how you can find more information about that court case. So it's always starting from my website, stop007.org. If you scroll down to court cases, which is this one here on the right, and within that, you have to go via the profile for Gerhard Ulrich, because he's the one who drew my attention to this. He's the anti-corruption campaigner in Switzerland. The case has nothing to do with him, but he drew my attention to it. So you have to go down to appeals by Gerhard Ulrich down there. And this is the court case I'm talking about. The court case, oh, sorry, not the one in Bamberg. Ah, damn, I forgot to put it up. Okay, I'm so terribly sorry. Gosh, I'm such a total muffin. Okay, right. Sorry, I forgot to post it. So I will just tell you. So on Friday, the 14th of June, 2019, there was a court case in the Swiss town of Olten. Horton. Okay, it was started at 8:15 in the morning, and what it was about, it was the court case of Andres Zaug. This is spelled Zaugg, and Andres is his first name, so Andres Zaug, who is an inventor and also campaigner against religious intolerance, particularly that of the Catholic Church. Now, the story of his story is that as he was campaigning against this, and for those people who do not live in Switzerland, it might be hard to understand how somebody can, maybe campaign so intensely or feel the need to really break out of the Catholic Church. But when you live in Switzerland, the first thing that you realize is that there is a big fat 2-meter stone cross every 500 meters. Now, what the hell is that? It is the property. It's like a, property marker of the Vatican. The Vatican owns this place. It owns every square inch of Switzerland, as far as I can make out. And then when you look at these stone crosses and half of them have skull and bones on them, you think, doesn't look like the loving symbols of a very, empathic, inclusive organization, does it? It looks more like a bunch of pirates saying, keep the fuck off our land. But anyway, so that's the atmosphere in Switzerland. And then on top of that, you have an obelisk in every town and all that. But here, there are entire cantons which are completely Catholic. And there are also cantons which are Protestant, and they've got Calvinists here and all this sort of stuff. And I don't even know the difference between these flavors. But ultimately, Switzerland is very much under the Catholic stranglehold. And up until very recently, and maybe even today, religious education is very indoctrinated, okay? And this is what I hear from people here, is that, people used to take religion very seriously, and the church used to have a very tight, strong stranglehold on people here. So what Andre started doing is he had, various very kind of big campaigns, and eventually he set a church altar alight. Okay. Now, if you're religious, you might go, oh, how the hell can you do that? But then remember that he didn't set God alight or Jesus, right? He pretty much set the stuff alight of those people who crucified Jesus, if you look into it. But anyway, so you would think that that would amount to property damage of maybe a couple tens of thousands or something like that. But no, here in Switzerland, it's not just property damage and, arson. It's also, you basically went up against the Vatican and Vatican country. So you might as well just, give up on your life, it seems. But what they did is that they locked him up for 5 years. Okay. Now, they locked him up in 5 years, and he spent years in solitary confinement, which we all know has been termed torture by the UN, which is also owned by the Vatican, by the way, but there we go. So he was basically tortured for years just for setting a bloody altar alight. I mean, really? And mind you, this wasn't, big frescoes and paintings from that were worth absolute millions. Okay, it was one church out of many in Switzerland. So, when you look at it, and I think the real eye-opener would be if you compare what, people get for murder. I mean, I was shocked to find out what people get for murder in the UK, right? First of all, the lawyers start with calling it manslaughter, and then it's like this and that, and it's not so bad because, the person was very old anyway. So, but in the end, people get out after 4 years in the UK, right? So when you lock up somebody for half a decade and you kind of force them into solitary confinement, and it's a person who is highly creative, and you basically torture them, you are showing that you're trying to destroy his life, right? And then what happened is that his 5 years were up and he was due to be released. And guess what? They didn't release him. They just refused to release him. And in the end, it turned so bad that through his lawyers, Andres went all the way to the top level court. And he said, well, he was given right. And then, as the lawyer in this court case on Friday explained, the top level court did something highly unusual. They actually put a date on his release, and they said he has to be released by that date. Okay. Now, the lawyer explained that he's only aware of one other case where, the court actually put a deadline. Typically, they say, well, you should release him as soon as possible or something like that, giving allowances for administrative this and that and faxing of documents and stuff like that. But here, the top level court said, no, you're going to release them by this date. And then guess what? They didn't. They just didn't. And Andres was sitting there, and one day passed, another day passed. I think in the end, 7 days passed, an entire week. And then what he did is he just used his kettle in his cell, and he set, I think, the bed sheet alight using the kettle, and a pillow, and also newspaper. And what he did basically is he turned on the kettle, right? And then he started throwing newspapers in, and he set those alight, and then he fed the cushion in. And he was also protesting about another fact, which is that his cell, all the cells had smoke alarms, but they were all broken or all turned off, and nobody gave a damn, right? And in this court case, he said, well, if there had been a proper smoke alarm, he couldn't have burned anything but maybe a snippet of paper. But as it was, he managed to generate a huge amount of smoke, right, in his cell. But then you would think somebody who was tortured, and, it's like, I know what they're doing. I know it so very well because I see it in every case. They're using administrative terrorism to torture a person as much as they possibly can in the most psychopathic, sadistic, degenerate, fucked in the head way. Okay? And then afterwards, when they're caught out, they're like, oh no. I mean, look at this administrative procedure and look at that. And no, oh no, I mean, we were right. No, you're just fucking Nazi psychopathic killers. That's what you are. I wanted to say, to the what are they called? The claimants, right? Who didn't even bother to turn the fuck up, right? So the other party wasn't even there. Okay. So that's also typical of these dodgy cartel court cases, is that they throw an administrative case in there and they don't bother to turn up to the court case, right? I mean, at that point, I think there should be a rule if a party doesn't turn up, and I think in Britain there even is for the small claims court. If you don't turn up in court, well, the other party is going to be given right. Okay? Fuck you, basically. And this is, I think, how it should be. So imagine, win this court case, the other party isn't there, and then the lawyer puts out his plaidoyer and he explains to us how the top level court had already decided to release Andres. This pseudo prison internment camp Nazi bullshit show didn't tell Andres why, because I don't know what they were thinking, like they don't need to because he's a slave, right? And then he set the satellite, and now, oh my God, it's so terrible that we need to have a court case fucking years later. Okay? I mean, how messed in the head is that? And at some point, people should think, hang on, the state is paying lawyer after lawyer. Okay? At what point is the money, frankly, wasted on these lawyers more than the monetary value of a bedsheet, a stupid, probably very old and used cushion in a prison, and a used newspaper from yesterday, right? At what point does it just not, reckon to just do this bullshit? But no, with complete disregard to the taxpayer and any rules of sanity, these idiots just keep litigating. So that was the setup, and I color it with my personal opinion, okay, here, obviously, right? But that was pretty much what it was about. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, let's see what was the fucked in the head stupid excuse that they used to keep Andres in the prison after his, solitary confinement torture session for several years. And you know what it was? It was that, oh, he might be a danger to himself and others. After 5 years in prison? Really? And this guy is just a softly spoken, very educated, very nice Swiss guy who's actually an inventor. Really? So it's utter and complete bullshit. And who came up with this? The so-called Kinder- and Erwachsenenschutzbehörde. So the children, the protection agency for children and adults. Okay, what does that sound like? To me, it sounds like a fucking Nazi internment camp, right? Because Schutz and Betreuung wasn't a phrase that the Nazis had invented and kind of coined and in common usage. Betreuung is a Nazi term, okay? So this is like care, like care homes. So this is like a Nazi facility behaving like a Nazi facility, okay? And they think that they are above the highest court in the land, which also immediately means that they are really truly fucked in the head on some level, right? That they don't get it. They don't get it that there are rules that they have to stick to. Now, the only people too freaking dumb to get it that there are rules to stick to are psychopaths. So in other words, already in the action, I can tell that KESP, pseudo internment camp organization is staffed with psychopaths. Okay? And this whole thing of Andres being a threat to himself and others is utter tosh. Okay? And they were proved to be just wrong. Okay? So that was the excuse. Total torture and nonsense, right? And what was very, very clever is that the lawyer said that because Andres, and by the way, then the state said, oh yes, but this entire KESP process had an option to appeal, and that's why it wasn't unjust. I mean, fuck you guys, this is just beyond the pale, right? I mean, how does it make it any better that in principle you can appeal this decision to keep you incarcerated when you don't know about it, when you don't even know why you're being kept locked up, right? So the lawyer brilliantly, and I have to say, the lawyer was actually absolutely impeccable that day. He said basically, well, if you are stuck somewhere and somebody deprived you of your liberty, which was basically an illegal act, from the moment that the top court, said that he had to be released, then what do? You have to process one way. And some people say, oh, you have to write to your politicians, but effectively, you don't have any other means of raising, a protest apart from just setting your cell alight. And it was very clever because he said it wasn't a fire, these were smoke signs. Like pretty much like what, Indians would use in the cartoons, smoke signs, like help me, which was brilliant. Rauchzeichen, this is what he said. Freaking genius. I mean, these lawyers, when they really get going, they can give you their money's worth, right? But so that was all very, very clever. But what was absolutely amazing that day in court, and this is why it was a stonking victory, I have never seen a court case like that, and I have most certainly not seen a court case like that in Switzerland, right? I've been to several court cases here in Switzerland, and so far, they were all pretty Nazi. This time round, however, these people were nice. They were so nice, it was surreal, okay? Also, the entire court case, right? First of all, the staff at the door, they usually tend to be very nice, to be fair, in Switzerland. They're all very correct, very nice, okay? The problems start when you walk into the courtroom and, some of the judges I saw, they needed a license, like, a weapons license for their face. Really, they were that grumpy. But here, what they did is that they picked a super young judge, right? Who, by, the looks of it, still had a soul. I didn't know that stuff like that existed around here, right? So it was a very young chap, right? He was smiling. He was even laughing about, remarks that the defendant made, and it was just so humane. It was unbelievable. His sidekick, the lady, in charge of writing, the court document or whatever the hell that was, right? She was super smiley. She looked humane. They were all so civilized. And then what came out of the judge's mouth, which is typically where the problems really start, right? It all made sense and was actually 100% correct, right? And I was just thinking, blimey, someone made an effort, what did they do with all the old codgers who are typically there, and pulling incredibly grumpy faces? So, I just couldn't believe it. And what absolutely got me is that, so there was also a journalist from Germany, and imagine the Swiss judge said, oh, we're aware that there's press from Germany and that there are people who are German speakers in the audience, And for this reason, the judgment, what the judge said, he switched to High German, and his first pitch at High German was still very Swiss. So, the German people, I mean, I've lived here for quite some time, but I was struggling to follow everything. And then when he saw our, befuddled faces, when he read out the judgment, he said, okay, and now he will put on his best German, official German. And then he just switched into his absolutely flawless German, which made it crystal clear. But I have never, ever, ever, experienced something like that. Somebody being considerate towards the audience. And then they were also translating legalese, into simple terms so that the audience can follow. And I just thought I just, I thought, did I die on the motorway? Am I dreaming this? Am I really here? Because it was fantastic. And in the end, the guy was acquitted. Okay, the same day, job done. But I strongly suspect that what led to this, right, because this court case was nothing like the other ones I've seen, and the judge was very, very young, and I think he was handpicked, right? I can't escape that suspicion, okay? Because typically with these highly topical cases, they get some battle-hardened, total bastard of a person who just doesn't give a damn, right? And he is like a steaming dragon, and now it was completely different. So I think what it actually was, it was a total victory, because now Switzerland is very small, and I've got the impression everybody knows everybody. The campaigning work that Gerhard Ulrich did over the years, and now that he's internationally known, and now that there are regularly court observers going to these court cases, now people understand that any problems they throw will never go away, right? Will basically be a lasting mark for that court forever after. So it was just the most mind-blowing experience. And after that, after the court hearing, the German journalists interviewed the lawyer, and I had the chance to interview him and ask him a couple of questions. And this guy was just a bomb, okay? And I knew very well that this whole CASP, so the Child and Adult Protection Agency, is a very dubious organization that just sprang up like mold, in Switzerland. And like mold, it's really hard to get rid of it as well. But they have cocked up so many things, and they have destroyed so many lives. It's frightful. And when a Swiss journalist called Bruno Hug reported about the problems with this CASP, this agency, well, he happened to lose his job, even though he was a really, senior person who actually founded the newspaper, but they threw him out, right? And as I understand, he's now litigating. So that is the power of this, protection agency. So this is what it was really about, right? Because it was this protection agency that had screwed up. So, and then when I asked the lawyer, I said, what is your view, about the CASP, and what goes to this protection agency, and what, should happen in future? He just came out like it was actually like the bomb. He said, well, these guys should stick to curing patients and helping people, and they should keep their hands out of overreach. That's exactly right, but nobody has ever said that before. It was an amazing interview, and I'm just waiting for the the German version to be published. But it was like, wow, and that's when you see when the public gets together with the litigant who's been unfairly treated and has been tortured, and when the lawyer gets together with that group and actually works for once in the favor of the client, right, as they should. But when they actually do that, it is amazing. And then you can see that this organization that seemed so scary, right, before, and so absolutely unshiftable, just rolls over and behaves like, a cute little puppy. And, that was a stonking success. And I just came out of it thinking, if all court cases were like that, if literally we could all cut the crap and just go back to basics and have actual basic, law and justice and normal the normal legal process and normal jurisdictional procedures, it's great, because then everybody knows what they can rely on. There are no bad surprises, and there isn't this feeling of like, fighting for your life and, being surrounded by this black, dark, criminal bullshit that just makes you despair, and ultimately leads nowhere, you know? So it was absolutely fantastic. So Andres Tauk is now free, and with this decision, it opened up the door to litigate against the mistreatment he suffered, right? And that is step 2. So in a sense, the crime cartel has been pushing this way, right, and has rolled over a couple of people. And in every case, when they get going, there are always real casualties. There are always people who die through mysterious, incidents at the height of the battle, right? At the height of the battle. For me, that always tells me, okay, it's assassinations. Okay, they've tried to really break up people. But, so the cartel steamrolls people that way. And with these court cases, we just managed to push it back into the middle. And now we have to use this wave to steamroll them back, And I don't intend to stop at this middle point, because now it's about damages and retribution, from our side, because you just don't pull shit like that and think you can get away with it. Or, when we're equal or arrive back where we were, it's going to be okay. No way. And I really encourage victims to persevere and have a much longer term, goal, where you don't just want to be left the hell alone. You want damages for what they have done to you, because you are entitled to this. You are entitled to damages by law, and no one can take that away from you. Okay, so it can be won. These things can be won. You can work with the court system, and exactly what I predicted has happened. You can force the court system to act with integrity. Now, the question is, was this court outcome planned? Oh, hell yeah. Was there big Masonic shenanigans behind the scenes, thinking, can we screw these people over? If so, how do we do it? Oh, yeah, hell yes. Of course there was, right? But if the results is, correct and what it should be, what the hell do I care, right? So anyway, so that is a total success. Now, more news, because there's much, much more to tell you about. First of all, let me check if you guys can still hear me. I can. Okay, fine. Now, what I also want to tell you is, so these were news from Switzerland, and now I would like to hop to other countries and give you some news from around the world. Oh, actually, no. Before, because now I'm talking. Now I'm talking about the KESP, and I want to tell you something that happened to me, okay? Now, big news, okay? Big news, because, sorry, when I say KESP, it stands for KASB, KESP. And this is the Adult and Children Protection Agency in Switzerland. And it's something that came into being, well, really in the form that it exists now, not that long ago. So after the year 2000 or 2010. And now this entire Adult and Child Protection Agency is taking over the country. They, I think, are positioning themselves pretty much like the Super Tribunal, the NCAT Super Tribunal in Australia, to, try to be above the highest court in the land. And this is why this court case was so important, this Andres Tauk court case, because there they really thought they are. Okay? So that's why you have to watch these guys. But now, talking about them and keeping in mind that the intelligence agencies knew all along that on Friday, I'm going to go to a court case where the KESP, so this Adult Protection Agency, is the key pivot point. What happened 2 days before going is that I got a letter. Okay. Now the letter ties in to me having applied for a time extension. So when you change cantons in Switzerland, okay, so I left Canton Zurich, and I'm not that far away from Zurich at all, but I've just crossed the border and I'm now in Canton Aargau. So in Canton Aargau, if you change cantons in Switzerland, it's like emigrating to a new country. And you basically have to justify your existence to the new canton. And in principle, the canton can say, no, fuck off. We don't want you here. Okay. Now I am trying to be a model citizen, and I'm trying to fight for the people of Switzerland, right? I'm just trying to fight for their health, for their, you know, the integrity of their democracy, for their sovereignty, for their, you know, right to their own mind and stuff like that. And I hope that one day that will get recognized. But at the moment, I still have to justify myself to the Amt, to the Migrationsamt. So I'm a migrant, okay? Because I moved some 10 kilometers, I'm now a migrant, and I have to reapply. So I had to give them a bunch of documents, and then they wanted more documents. And in the end, I was so busy with court cases, I applied for time extension. And on top of that, I have to apply for time extension because if I have to do anything really involved in my room, they turn on the weapons and they utterly shoot me to bits. And next time I will show you the machine gunning marks on metal that these directed energy weapons leave. Okay, this is serious stuff. You are basically at the Somme in the Second World War. So you have to flee your home, you have to go to a cafe, you have to take all your documents, and eventually you just can't do it. You just can't, you know, look after your own administrative affairs. So what I did is when I had to flee to Croatia, I said, guys, I'm being machine gunned so hard, and here's the evidence. And I sent them the video that shows me being shot in the face. I said, look, here's the video of me being shot in the face. Here are the genocide plans on Deagle for Switzerland. I happen to be in those genocide plans as a victim. I have to flee the country, and please, could I have a time extension? Now, what was super interesting is that I got this time extension on the 29th of May. Okay, on the 29th of May. And then I was in Croatia, and then I, you know, came, sorry, no, that was April. So I got it when I came back, but it was basically the time extension for what I'd asked, right? So eventually I got this letter and they were like, fine, okay, you can have the time extension. But then just before going to this court case, right? So I hope you can still follow. My real administrative shenanigans is with the Amt für Migration, okay, of the Canton Aargau. So the migration office, the migration agency of the canton, where I'm just filing my documents and I asked for more time. But now, 2 days before going to the court hearing of, Andres Zaug, I got the following letter in the post. Let me show you. Let me share my screen because this one amused me so much. It was priceless. So let me see. Where's this? Okay, here it is. I think you should see this one. Okay, let me check that you can still see it on the screen. Sorry, I have to wait for the stream to show what I'm showing you. It just takes a few seconds. Okay, so this is an absolute stonking bombshell. Yes, you guys can see it fine. So let me blow it up. So this is now, and then this contains so much, okay, deductive gold. It's unbelievable. So it comes from the local court of Baden, which is Canton Aargau, and note the 3 satanic pentagrams in Aargau, and these wiggles that you are meant to, are led to believe are waves, representing probably a lake or something, but actually look like the wiggles of the snake, the Vatican snake. So you've got the snakes and you've got the satanic pentagrams. Good start, isn't it? So anyway, this is the family court, and this letter comes from the Children and Adult Protection Agency, from a certain Jürgen Müller, who is an expert judge. So I'm getting a letter from a judge, and this is what it says. And note the date. The date is the 7th of June, 2019, and the date will become very, very important. Now, and it says, I'll try to translate as I'm reading it. So it says, Prüfung is kind of checking or, testing. So assessment for adult protection measures. And it says, Dear Miss Horton, and by the way, I am Frau Dr. Horton and not Frau Horton, which is also relevant, but anyway. So, dear Miss Horton, in the letter from the 27th of May, the Agency for Migration has contacted the family court of Baden as the Children and Adult Protection Agency. And according to this note, you require help and assistance. And in reply to that, we have opened a procedure to check if I am in need of official support measures. So it's official assistance measures. And it's not just if I'm in need, if they should be ordered. Really? Really? And then they say, we have contacted your local office to find a suitable person and to task a suitable person with checking. The Abklärung is kind of like the assessment, okay? And this person is going to contact you in the near future to look at your current life circumstances in more detail. Really? You think so? And then it says, as soon as so as soon as a corresponding report with the assessment is received, we will get in touch with you again. And we thank you for the, oh God, Kenntnisnahme. That's like, we thank you for recognizing this letter, or for, taking note of this letter. And then you get a big fat stamp here from the regional court of Baden, okay? And this guy is a judge. Now, what's wrong with this letter? I mean, apart from the fact, right, of the details here, that these guys want to, put me under protective measures, so-called, and keep in mind that the sort of Betreuung is a Nazi concept, right? Apart from that, what is wrong with this letter is that apparently the the Agency for Migration has contacted them on the 27th of May. However, 2 days later, on the 29th of May, they wrote me an email actually granting me the extension of time, not mentioning that they were so concerned about me that they made this report. Now, this is such a big deal that if this were true, they would have done so, okay? So what I'm thinking is this is a big fat fucking lie, okay? That's what I'm thinking. So, I think these guys decided on the 17th or the 7th of June to write this letter, and then were backdating it to a suitable day to make it look credible that that was when the Amt has contacted them. But I'm sorry, if the Amt had contacted them on this day, why would they email me 2 days later and not mention it? Right? Unless they wanted to do something behind my back. But then the Amt for Migration has no reason to do anything behind my back because I haven't done anything. As far as they know, I'm just any old person who is a bit disorganized and needs more time, right? Now, note this date, the 7th of June, 2019. I was thinking the 7th, and there's more to this, okay, guys? There's much more to this. I was thinking the 7th of June, 2019, that rings a bell somehow. What was I doing on the 7th of June, 2019? And then when I want to find out what I was doing, the first place I check is my YouTube channel. I'm like, was I broadcasting that day or something? And heck knows I was. And look at what I was broadcasting about. Let me share my screen and let me show you. So on the 7th of June, what I did is the 7th of June were these two videos. I put out a double whammy of videos. One was called Frontalangriff, so frontal attack, okay? Here, and I can prove to you that this is the video I put out, okay, on the 7th of June. And this was in German. Okay, and what I did in this video is I showed, so first of all, I showed a bunch of things. I talked about the preferential tax rate, I think, but I also showed the affidavit results, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So in there, yes, here it is. So I showed the affidavit results from the affidavit survey. Okay, that's this document here. And I think the page previously, you will recognize these here, okay? So I published the ultimate evidence for this global genocide. Okay. That's happened on the 7th of June. And this was called Frontal Attack. Now, the other thing I put out, which was in English, is called Blitzkrieg. Okay. And this was the English broadcast where, again, I was talking about these results in English. Okay. And this is also, actually, it was past midnight eventually. So, you know, I think Google, YouTube notes it down as the 8th of June, but actually it was still on the same day. I put out 2 videos on the same day, and that started on the 7th. But either way, the German one has been put out on the 7th of June. Okay. Now, the reason why this is important, okay, remember the dates. So on the 7th of June, a court decides to check if they should order protective measures against me. Okay, the 7th of June. Now, as a caveat, what you should also notice is that the Children and Adult Protective Agency in my canton is not even an agency. They decided to morph it with the court. Can you see what's wrong with that? You have now morphed a random agency that's actually known to be very, very bad with the powers of the judiciary. Can you see the Nazi internment camp forming there? So the judge is not independent. The judge is also sitting and coordinating the internment camp. Okay? Big fucking deal, big fucking issue, right? So that's already illegal in my view, because there's no way you can morph an agency with the court, because the court has to be an independent body in order to be able to judge anything that goes wrong with the agency. And according to the laws of systems analysis, there's always something going wrong with the agency at some point in some fraction of cases, right? As much as, you know, a manufacturing line can't have, you know, flawless products, but has, you know, up to 1%, up to 5%, you know, that's the 6 Sigma that they're aiming for, to have just so few outliers where something goes wrong. As much as you have faulty products, you also have faulty decisions from an agency. So at no point are you allowed to merge a court with a, you know, a Yankee Doodle agency that you've basically just, you know, put up 10 years ago. That's bollocks. So this whole construct is unlawful, right? It's total nonsense. But then this court decides to write to me on the 7th, the day when I have published the evidence of global crimes against humanity, that will get a lot of people into very deep shit. Can we see any connection with that? And then on the 7th, they draw up a letter where they claim that the Agency of Migration notified them, even though the Agency of Migration really doesn't have any business notifying them. Okay. And then this is the whole thing. So what I did when I got this letter, I thought this is really funny, because I want to draw the CASP into my court case. I actually want to draw these fraudulent agencies and these Nazi structures into my court case and get them really into the deep shit, right? Because then I can talk about Bruno Hug, what happened to him when he reported about the, you know, frankly criminal things that the CASP was doing. I can talk about all the other victims who were dragged off by the CASP and were drugged against their will. And I can start talking about these Nazi processes here in Switzerland, which is great. It's really great. So I thought, this is fantastic. This is a little victory in itself. And then these guys set it up to be perfectly obvious. I mean, this is wonderful, right? But it gets much, much better than that. First of all, what I did is the same evening, I called, you know, Edmund Schönberger, who is the Swiss lawyer who is in charge of exactly fraudulent, you know, psychiatric measures by the CASP. That's what he earns his money with. That's what his Psychex, so psychiatry exodus, you know, organization is, you know, specializing in. So I thought this is wonderful. So I called Edmund Schönberger and he was laughing. He said, this is just ridiculous, isn't it? And I said, yeah, it is ridiculous. But even at the time, I didn't know how ridiculous it was, okay? Because then what I got to know the next day is that while I got this letter, 2 days or 2 working days later, because I think the 7th was a Friday. So on Tuesday, what happened is that another judge, Judge Holzer Zaug in, Canton Bern, also wrote a letter demanding that my client Siegfried Thomas get psychiatrically assessed. Okay, and I've got the letter here. So look at this, guys, and look at the date. So let me share my screen, and I hope I can do it like this now. So look at this. So this is the letter, okay? And here this is a JPEG, so I have to kind of blow it up. Oh, damn it. Okay, sorry about this. So this letter is from I hope you can read it, from the University of Bern, their medical faculty, okay? And this is the Institute for Legal Medicine, okay? And this is their forensic psychiatric service. And this comes from a professor, Professor Michael Liebrenz, okay? And then there's another one called Dr. Med Mark Walburg. Now, these two guys, unfortunately, picked what in German is called the Arschkarte. Okay, they pulled the arse card because these guys most likely will have their name banded around in international, court cases for crimes against humanity if they don't tread carefully. But anyway, so these people write a letter to Siegfried Thomas here, okay, and then what this letter is about is, and also look at the cock-up. First of all, the date is the 11th of June up here. And then they say, invite to examination. And then they say, dear Mrs. Thomas. But hang on a second, it's not even Mrs. Thomas litigating, you muppets. It's Mr. Thomas, you morons. I mean, that just shows you how much they have a clue of what these guys are doing, right? But anyway. And then they say, the Regional Court of Bern, Jura-Zeeland, the criminal section, has tasked us to assess you psychiatrically. Please come on Monday, so tomorrow, the 17th of June at 2 o'clock until roughly 6 o'clock. What, 4 fucking hours for this? I mean, what the hell is that? A CIA interview? Is this like extraordinary rendition or what the fuck? But anyway. And then they say, at the forensic psychiatric service, oh, here's a Dr. Med Hagen. So that's the third guy who has just pulled the Arschkarte. But anyway, and they say, please bring your, your Ausweis, so your identification papers. And if you need any reading assistance like contact lenses or glasses, bring those as well. And then please, at this moment, we also would like to draw your attention that in our building, there is a Hundeverbot. This is a wonderful word, a Hundeverbot. It is a, what's it called? It's like dogs are forbidden to enter the building, okay? But the state of dogs being forbidden from entering the building has been turned into a noun. It's the forbidding of dogs, this edifice operates under the, forbidding of dogs edict. It's hilarious. But anyway, okay, so no dogs. And then you have, oh, here, look, there's a Mr. Fisher or B. Fisher or Miss Fisher in the secretariat. Okay, so now, what the fuck is wrong with this? What is wrong with this, first of all, is that the 11th of June, okay, let's just check the working days here. So the 7th of June was a Friday. The 11th of June is a Tuesday. It's 2 working days after I get the letter myself. So, okay, so this is the sequence, okay? So first of all, I am putting out my video about ultimate, undeniable, under oath proof for global extermination programs and crimes against humanity that will get a lot of people into very deep shit. It is exactly identical with the crimes against humanity suffered by myself and by my client, for whom I have testified as an expert witness. Do you know when I testified as an expert witness? In January 2018, right? A year and a half ago. And do you know what happened in that court case since then? Fuck all. Absolutely fuck all, right? So we have a court case okay, which happened in January 2018, which was my client being charged by his neighbor who's gunning him with directed energy weapons. And I've got physical evidence of that, right? Because he put a dent into metal shielding. That's why, you know. So his neighbor is gunning Siegfried Thomas and his wife. It's one of those cases where the two people, you know, cross. There are two witnesses, and is gunning them for years. And there's a million other things about that case that, you know, makes it clear that it's targeting. So there's this court case starting in January 2018, and then fuck all happens. If I remember correctly, in the summer, eventually they got university to put a measuring device into the house of Siegfried Thomas. And the entire court case is actually the perps suing the victims, and they suing the victims for insult to honor, Ehrverletzung. Now, the insult to honor, you know, is like, it's equivalent to libel, kind of, but it only exists in Switzerland, okay? And it's insult to honor because the victims dare to claim that the perpetrators are perpetrators. You know, okay. And then this court orders measurements to be conducted in the house of the victim for directed energy weapons. Okay, they order it after months and months during which the elderly couple, who are pensioners, are being shot to utter smithereens, and they have to leave their house every day because of the machine gunning. Okay, then when this measuring device arrives, it's about this big. Okay, this is my phone. It's about this big, and it's completely sealed. You can't see what this thing is measuring. It's a sealed fucking box. Okay, no measuring values are obvious on this. And after half a day, it runs out of battery and there is no charger. Now, when you're being shot at with directed energy weapons and you've got the measuring device here, you can be shot in the head here and this thing will not measure anything, as much as a laser can point at your forehead and there's no light over there because the laser pointer points here. Okay, now if you have collimated pulses, you have to put the sensor right into the path of the pulse, or else it ain't gonna measure anything, right? So essentially what this was, it was this expert university taking the fucking piss. Okay, obviously, right? I knew that. They knew that. From physicist to physicist, we both knew that, right? And then eventually I wrote a letter to the lawyer of Siegfried Thomas, and I said, I'm sorry, you know, this thing that they gave there, this measuring device, it's a toy. I said Kinderspielzeug. Okay, this is a freaking toy. What Siegfried Thomas and his wife need are military measuring equipment, you know, that can detect drone attacks. And I know a company called Aronia, which makes it, and it looks like a dome, literally this size, and this thing is measuring in all freaking sectors. And ideally, you take that thing and you put it over your head. Then you have a chance of detecting when you're being shot in the face by your neighbors. You know, that's the kind of stuff we need. And I took all these, you know, brochures, and I passed it to the court when in summer of 2018. And then we heard nothing for months. And during these months, the elderly couple, Thomas, gets shot to smithereens every night. And during the day, they have to flee their home and they are out and about. And then they continue to be shot at, especially the wife, because women typically get slaughtered, you know, by these psychopaths. Okay, so that's the case. Now, since the summer of 2018, I only heard once from this court case, and that's when I asked Siegfried Thomas, so what's the outcome? What's the next step? And you know what the judge ordered? The judge ordered that Siegfried Thomas and his wife, so this elderly pensioner couple, pay for the military equipment themselves. And you know what the wonderful Swiss, you know, university or whoever they contacted gave them as a kind of a quote for the equipment? It was 20,000 Swiss francs. I think that's a lot more than people get as a pension. in many cases. 20,000 Swiss francs. So you are being shot at by your government, and then you have to spend, which I think a dollar and the Swiss franc is pretty much 1-to-1. So you have to spend $20,000 just to get the equipment to be put in your home for a few days to prove that you're being shot at, even though, Siegfried Tommy's wife is shot, into a bleed every day. Really? And you have dents in steel? So at that point, I said, right, I mean, this is bullshit, okay? And I thought, right, let's just wait what's going to come out of this court case. And then for literally an entire year, I heard nothing. So with a court case that proceeded like that, and where I haven't actually heard anything directly from a judge for a year and a half, for this judge to spontaneously order my client to be psychiatrically assessed 2 days after I am to be psychiatrically assessed, it's a bit too much of coincidence, is it? Right? In other words, it's not coincidence. It is mathematically impossible, right? By the laws of statistics, for it to be coincidence after a year and a half, right? Where you have the litigant, the expert witness, both receiving a letter 2 working days apart, and it coinciding with that expert witness publishing ultimate final proof of crimes against humanity happening around the world. Right? So, of course, this is absolute, raving nonsense. But what are we going to do with the situation now? And I contacted this lawyer, Edmund Schönberger, and, as my lawyer, he has now, sent back a letter, and he's basically arguing that, number one, it is a complete infraction of my privacy to have anybody come here to assess my life circumstances. They have no right to do that. I'm neither a danger to myself nor to anybody else. The only person I'm a danger to is the head of MI6 because I want his job, and that's about it. So, what is this meant to be, right? This is going to be a bullshit fest. But now the real question is, how are we going to fight this bullshit fest? And I want to, every time they do some bullshit, I want to take it and I want to use it for myself. So what I did is I wrote back to the Amt, to the Amt of Migration, so the migration office, and I said, okay, guys, you've just confirmed my time extension. And, on the day I received the letter, my time extension is still valid. You didn't tell me about this. What exactly triggered you to make this? Of course, I know they didn't. Okay, really, I know they didn't. Because why would they, right? It's coming from another direction. Somebody who is above these two judges activated them simultaneously. I'm pretty sure that Judge Holzer-Zaug also didn't want to trigger this, because why would she? She did nothing for a year and a half. Okay, why now? It's not coming from her. It's not really coming from the guy at the CASP, at this Adult Protection Agency, because, I mean, come on, why the fuck, right? I mean, he doesn't even know me, right? So it's not from them. So it's an entity that is above these two judges. Now, who could that possibly be? Let's all have a hard think. Who is above the Agency for Migration, above the Bezirksgericht Baden, so the regional court Baden, and who is above the regional court in Bern? Right? Somebody that high up. So, of course, right, we're talking about the intelligence agencies. In other words, this is, again, an intelligence agency bullshit. But now, how the hell are we going to take these guys by the balls and not let go ever again? And number one, okay, was this brilliant this brilliant lawyer, Edmund Schönberger. So he sent it back and he said, first of all, it's an invasion of my privacy. Second of all, it's my right to free speech, right, to just say, what I said to the Amt. And now I wrote back a loaded letter. And what I'm arguing, because I am fed up to the back teeth of some random office just hearing directed energy weapons or implants or neurotech, and then go like, get the Adult Protection Agency. I'm sorry, you could get away with this maybe 20 years ago, but now that time is over, okay, over. So we have the affidavit results. So what I'm going to write back, what I did write back is the following. I said, First of all, and these are for me the absolute killer points, because that's exactly how it is, okay? That's the truth. That cannot be shifted. In the case of crimes against humanity, I have a duty to inform the agencies. I have a duty, okay? Now I have evidence that there are crimes against humanity happening because I have this client in Bern, because I'm being shot at myself, because I know a batch of other Swiss victims whose names I can't reveal here. And I also happen to have all the evidence from all the other global affidavits about global programs. So there are crimes against humanity also happening in Switzerland, and it is my duty to inform the agency because I happen to be an expert and because I happen to have expertise that none of the people in the agency have. But as soon as I inform them, and that's what they really don't like, in the case of crimes against humanity, they have a duty to act against the crimes against humanity, not against the victims who told them so, right? They have a duty to act, and this applies to every police station in Europe for historical reasons, and it applies to every agency in Europe. Okay, that's why they don't like me reporting about this, because they can't claim afterwards they didn't know, opening themselves up to huge liability. So argument number one is, it is my duty in the case of crimes against humanity to inform them about it, and I happen to have the expertise to be able to do so. So it's incumbent on me to, follow my legal duty and do so. Point number two is, I am bound to reply to the agency truthfully. Okay, I have to give them the full truth. Now, the full truth is, I need a time extension because I'm shot the fuck up in my own room with directed energy weapons. Okay, that is the truth. I even have audio recordings and video footage proving that that's the case. So that's the truth. I'm obliged to say the truth. Now, these two legal obligations for having to say the truth and having to inform the agencies about crimes against humanity cannot possibly lead, to me suffering, Ehrverletzung, insult to honor, can it? Right? So, what do you say? This is how I see the whole legal situation, okay? So this is what happened. So I'm very curious and I'm continuing the battle. But basically what I want to do is I want to put the flags down and I want to say, no, it's over now. We don't involve the KESP. First of all, they're an illegitimate organization because they've just, climbed into bed with the judiciary, which is unlawful, right? Hello, Nazis, here we come, right? But second of all, even beyond this construct, the note to them was fraudulent. And beyond that, I am just following my legal obligation. And at the end of the day, right, I just want to be a good immigrant to Switzerland. I want to be truthful. I want to warn them. I want to protect the civilian population of Switzerland. And the only way, how only I can at this moment in time, because there's only me talking about it. So I am legally obliged to do so. Isn't it brilliant? Because that is how it is, isn't it? Right? So this is what I'm going to do. Now, on other news, because I'm never just get attacked on one way, by the way, you might wonder, how is this a victory? It is a huge victory. Number one, because I had a really good chance. I had a reason to call up again Edmund Schönberger, and I love talking to him because the guy is brilliant. I also, got in touch with another psychiatrist who also is being harassed by the secret services. So I, got to make contact there as well. And it's always good if you keep in touch with people, but also because now we have an opportunity to put down the flags. And it's like, come on, at what point will you stop this nonsense? We have the market analysis that the global market for directed energy weapons is 42 billion. What are they all these weapons? Are these a type of weapons that don't produce a single victim? People get poked in the eye by pencils, right? Pencils have victims. So do these directed energy weapons never produce a victim? And if they do, where are they, right? Where are these victims? Well, they are here, right? So this is it. This is a huge victory. Now, another victory. I think I might have told you about Oh, yes, I did tell you about the Commerzbank. Yes, that Commerzbank backed off. Now, so I already told you about that I managed to beat Commerzbank. But the third is now, and you won't believe this, right? It is with my own landlords, the old landlords who actually canceled my contract. So I had to move out. Now, the old landlords, if you remember, I moved out at the end of, or at the beginning of October 2018. Now, to this day, I still don't have my deposit back. And because it's Switzerland, the deposit is quite astoundingly large. Okay. So I am fighting the, the people who are, who are sitting on my deposit. But what was absolutely hilarious is the following, and bear with me because I know that a lot of you are also, in this situation. So I want to keep you updated about this, landlord shenanigans. And what was hilarious, okay, and I had such a good day the day this happened, is that first of all, I had to spend months emailing my landlords about the deposit, and they would refuse to answer. Okay. Then in February, so October, November, December, January, February, I eventually got through, and the person who replied was the realtor, or the person who's again from one of these agencies. Okay. And then he said, okay, well, here it is, but you have to pay for all the repainting in the flat. Okay. And the flat had mold, like many victim flats have a mold problem. And that house happened to have zero insulation. So there was a lot of mold because the water hitting the outside of the wall comes through the brickwork and, ends up behind your wallpaper, obviously. But anyway, so there was a mold problem and some places had to be repainted. And I said, sure, okay, fine. I will, I will also, contribute to that, no problem. But I had lived there for 3 years. So paint is due for 8 years. So you pay, the remaining 5/8, so a bit more than 50%. Now, this realtor gave me a bill where he charged me 100% of the painting. And I, in the end, ended up being overcharged by a stupid amount of money, really. So I said, okay, fine. I had to redo the calculation correctly, send it back to the realtor and say, well, this is wrong. Please correct it. Please give me the correct bill. On top of that, there were 2 items that were clearly not belonging, onto my bill. Number one, they claimed that the bathroom sink was clogged up by hairs. And the bathroom sink was not clogged up when I moved out of the flat. And there was a witness who checked all the taps, who was a former janitor. So that's a lie. But what's more of a lie is that I am pretty sure that the bathroom sink is not clogged up by hairs because I wasn't brushing my hair in the bathroom. Okay. After my husband left me and moved out, I had a wonderfully nice big flat and I could spread throughout the entire bedroom. And we had a big glass, cupboard, not glass, mirrored, cupboard, wardrobe in our bedroom. And I used to comb my hair like literally like the Queen of Sheba, in the bedroom with my own, huge room for myself and my toiletries and my, beauty products. It was great. But because of that, I'm pretty sure the sink wasn't clogged up. So what happened is that the painter who repainted my flat washed his, paintbrushes in the bathroom sink. It dried up at night and clogged up the sink, right? You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure that one out. So I said, take that off the list. So they did. But then the second item was that I should pay the realtor, which came in at, I think, 210 francs. I'm like, you're kidding me? Really? And this is absolutely fantastic now. And I really recommend that you try this as well. Okay. So this guy said, I have to pay him. And I said, why? We don't have a contract. And before you gave me your, bill here, you put your fee on my bill. I didn't even know how much you cost. How the hell can I be liable when I don't have a contract with somebody? I don't know how much they are taking per hour. I don't know what their terms and conditions are, and I have no way to cancel the contract. This is not a lawful contract in any country. What is this? So I said, I'm not in charge of that. And then they said, yeah, but I am in charge because, the landlords hired him and it's part of the exchange of the flat and it goes with it. So I should pay him. for that 1 hour, and his hourly fee is 210. And I was like, okay, fine. And they also said they talked to the agency of landlords and this is the edict. I was like, okay. And then I thought, if we are doing full economic costing here, I'm going to get you. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to pay your bill, but because you didn't do your work and you gave me a wrong bill and I had to recalculate everything, and I have to, keep emailing you for months where you didn't respond to my emails, the extra expense to me, right, is the doing the work for you of writing the bill myself again, right, and calculating it again properly, and writing all these emails, trying to get you to do your work, which are my expenses, right? Now, my hourly rate also happens to be 200 Swiss francs, right? And I totted up the amount of time I spent on this, and it's an hour and a half. So I come as 300 francs, you come as 210 francs. I'm going to pay you, but you're going to pay me. So you owe me 90 francs. I was like, well, welcome to full economic costing, yay, isn't this great? But honestly, if people fuck you around, start touching up your hourly rate. And my hourly rate has been published on my website since 2010. So nobody can say that I just pulled this number out of a hat. Right? There we are. So since then, I haven't heard back. They still have my deposit, but let's see if I can get the 90 francs. But anyway, so, keep fighting back, but on a more serious and much more general note, because this is not just about me and my landlords and my deposit. What you should also take note is, you should decide what your hourly rate is, and every extra costs in working time that the intelligence agencies put on you, where you have to research directed energy weapons and remote neural monitoring just to be able to find out what's being done to you, well, you can take those hours and charge them eventually to the intelligence agencies. So I'm just encouraging you to, think what your hourly rate is, right? And it can, of course, be top market rate because you are a top person, right? And then just publish the rate somewhere on a website, and then eventually you can hand in the bill to the intelligence agencies, because these were all premeditated crimes, committed against you in a very intrusive manner. Okay, so keep this little analogy with the landlord in mind. They might fuck you over and hand in the bill, while then you hand in your bill, and then everybody settles everybody else's bill, right? This is how it should be. So I'll keep you posted about, what this realtor is going to think of next. I'm just waiting. But, isn't it shocking that everything I do now is, incurring some sort of difficulty? But of course, the targets know this sort of stuff. But anyway, so this is now enough from Switzerland. So you heard about the total victory of the court case. You heard about the total victory of me being able to, pull the Adult Protection Agency into the deepest shit, right? And you also will hear about, hopefully, more victories against my landlords, right? But now let's go across the pond and let's go to the United States, because I have some huge victories to report from there. So, okay, guys, this is really, really good stuff that I can report now. I'm very much looking forward to it. So hang on, where is it? Okay. So, let's start with Canada. Okay. So the first thing I would like to say is that Kevin Annett's campaign is going from strength to strength. And I would like to take you to murderbydecree.com. Murderbydecree.com. If you click top right on the ITCCS updates, you will get to this page. And there are two things I would like to update you about. Number one is an article that Kevin Annett put out, which is As Long as It Takes for a Child's Body to Rot, Reflections on the G Word in Canada. And this is a huge victory, because after absolute, 20 years, 10 years, which is, this is where the title comes from, when these children were murdered and their bodies were buried in these mass graves, right? Now the evidence from their little lives are just the bones, right? But literally, these people waited for the bodies to decompose down to skeletons before they admitted that actually a genocide had happened in Canada, Okay, so this is what this article is about. But when you read it, the article is very, very good. So I was reading it and it was just resonating with me. And what this is about, it's about Prime Minister Trudeau finally admitting, right, that this was happening. But then also in this, I'm just going to read a very short passage. Here it says, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was not thinking of how an electrode was clamped onto the penis of 9-year-old Buster Baptist when he spoke to the media about genocide the other day. In his effort to shift attention away from more than a century of state and church-led mass murder of residential school children, with controlled references to missing women over the past 30 years, Trudeau displayed not just an astounding chicanery, but a profound ignorance of what he was talking about. Small wonder, since the pitiful screams of Native women and children have never reached his ears. He spoke of genocide, but his stomach didn't heave in sickness from the putrid stench of weeks-old corpses unearthed and torn apart by roving dogs. Res dogs, so probably reservoir dogs. He should have vomited in horror right in front of the TV cameras. Instead, he read from a politically correct script. Meanwhile, the flesh from those cadavers is rotting away as part of an officially kept secret, leaving only a desiccated abstraction tucked away neatly between the letters G and E for genocide, right? I mean, this is pretty graphic, but I am very, very well pleased, not in the about the content, but I'm very pleased that somebody puts it exactly as it is, because these people are the vilest serial killers on the planet. Okay, and if any of us had the possibility of looking at their crimes and seeing what they did. I mean, the other thing that I really hicked up about is that this child, right, who was murdered, he had electrodes clamped onto his penis. Do you remember Abu Ghraib? Right? And do you remember that when we were talking about Abu Ghraib, I said that is not a prison, it's a porn production factory. I am pretty sure that these prisons are filmed by the cartel as much as they do indoor surveillance of the victim homes, and they are selling these abuse footages as as VIP porn. That is honestly my impression, because I heard that what was his name? Jeez, I forgot the name of was it Donald Rumsfeld? One of these guys is said to have had a direct link to what was going on in Abu Ghraib, and has a direct link, as in video link of what's going on in Guantanamo. If this is true, these guys are consuming sadist porn, because these are porn production factories, okay? And this is what was done to a 9-year-old boy before he was murdered. I mean, that is what we're talking about here. And what is so shocking is that the monsters and serial killers are still on the loose. The people who did that, they are still out there, and they haven't stopped doing this. So when you're wondering what is happening to all those children who disappear, well, this is what's happening to them today, until today. And guess what? In the United States, the FBI is running this, and we know this from Ted Gunderson. So anyway, so going back to the front page, you should really read through this, because I want you all to just have the balls to look in the horror into the face that these children had been put through, just so that you understand what this is really about. And then the second thing I would like to point out is a time to prosecute genocide in Canada and to raise up a new nation. And this link has an MP3 recording that you can listen to. And it's this link here. And I really encourage you to listen to it, because that is, again, Kevin Annett talking about prosecutions and what needs to be done. And it is very, very, very pertinent. And he has such a good way with words. I don't really want to interrupt his speech by playing just a little clip here, I encourage you to go there and listen to it yourself. So it's murderbydecree.com. Go to ITCCS updates, and then you will get to this page here. And it's basically this link, and it's this link. This link, it's about Justin Trudeau admitting that there was genocide in Canada and thereby opening himself and everybody in Canada up for prosecution, everybody involved in the state. And the second one is about the need to, at the time, and the need to prosecute genocide in Canada now. Okay, very, very important. Okay, the other thing I want to show you, oh, by the way, before I forget, here on bbsradio.com/here we stand, all one word, so bbsradio.com/here we stand. Tonight, there will be a broadcast by Kevin Annett, okay? And I think the broadcast is scheduled to start, hang on, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. East Coast time. Okay, so Eastern time. So at 6 p.m. in New York time, there will be a broadcast, a live broadcast on BBS Radio. So I encourage you to go here /here we stand, and I think this is where you will get the live broadcast from Kevin Annett. So I really encourage you to go there and keep up to date with what is happening here. Okay, very, very important. Okay, so this much from Canada. Now let's switch to the United States, where I have a bombshell of things to tell you about. Number one, very big interview. Bill Binney was interviewed by Alex Jones. It's always total fireworks, but this interview is very, very important. And it's about the Russia hoax, about the people being involved with the Russia hoax, and about how these people were trying to have a coup against the president. But it's a very important interview here, okay? And I hope I got the right one. Yes, this was published on the 9th of June, 2019, okay? And it's about a new plan to overthrow Trump has been discovered, okay? So very, very important. Now, this guy, Bill Binney, for those of you who don't know, he's a math genius. He is responsible for all or half the modern tools that NSA is now using. He invented them. And, you know, he walked out in disgust when he realized that they are being used for organized crime. And they have also been turned on the Americans, removing all the protection, all the anonymization that he had originally designed and put in. Okay, so they basically gutted his software from all the good and protective bits and turned it into an absolute, monster that's out to get us all. Okay, and that's when he left in disgust in 2001. And for the past 18 years, almost 18 years, so 17 years, he has been campaigning against this criminality. And he has spoken to the House of Lords in Great Britain. He has spoken to the Bundestag in Germany, informed them about this mass surveillance program. So this guy is bigger than Snowden. He designed and invented half the program Snowden blew the whistle on, if you like, right? So anyway, this is very important to hear him, okay? And there's another set of videos that are very important. And this one is also very important. First of all, it's one of the interviews where his colleague Kirk Wiebe is there as well. And what these guys say, so Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe, in this interview here, goes exactly to the core. They are talking about treason, about sedition, and how treason and sedition in the United States now has to be prosecuted. Okay, very, very, very important interview. Okay, so guys, take the time. I am shocked that this only has 93,000 views, because it should really have 350 million views or 327 million views, because every American should see this. Okay, so please share these links on social media. And the title of this one is called President Trump, Take the Key from Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe to End the Coup. So in other words, Kirk Wiebe and Bill Binney have the key to how to end the coup. They have the evidence of the Russia hoax and about the attempted coup against Donald Trump. And of course, it's not even just about Donald Trump. What it's about a criminal network known as the deep state, right, playing and riding roughshod over the Constitution and riding roughshod over the procedures in the United States. They lost respect for everybody. They lost respect for all the Americans. And now this coup shows that they have lost respect for the President of the United States. Okay? And that is the point. You can think about Trump what you like, but it's not about Trump. You have to understand that. It's about a criminal network riding and shredding the Constitution and just trashing all your rights, including the rights of the president. And this is what it's about. Okay? So once you start fighting for the right of the president of the United States, you know, that's when you really have backing to fight for the rights of the Americans. It should be the other way around, but unfortunately it isn't. Okay, so that's why you have to make a really big thing out of this about the rights of an elected president having been infringed. Okay, so the other thing is that as soon as you get Bill Binney into the court to testify about, and sorry, this isn't cartel signaling. This is me, you know, needing some water. Just give me a moment. As soon as you get, sorry, I think I have been shot in the throat because the cartel certainly doesn't want me to say this, but it is so important to get Bill Binney into court to testify, because as soon as he testifies about mass surveillance, about the criminality that he has witnessed, it is game over for the deep state. Okay? It is super important. And, you know, you have to know the price that Bill paid to bring this truth to you, because I only got to know from Alex Jones, from the Alex Jones interview, that when he testified in Congress, they poisoned him and he lost both his legs. I knew that there was something fishy about what happened to him, but I didn't know that it was actually, Alex Jones said they poisoned him in the cafeteria of Congress. Okay? That's how serious it is, guys. And that's how important Bill is. And maybe some of you remember that I said, and it was about, I think it was about this general, right? The general who said that there was a plan to attack 5 countries or 7 countries in 5 years, whatever. Okay, right. Now, oh God, I forgot his name. Sorry, I've been shot in the head for so long. I can see his let me remind you, because it's important. Actually, give me a moment to bring this up on YouTube, because it was the U.S. general. How can I forget his name? This is really stupid. But anyway, so U.S. general, 5 countries, 7 countries. Let's see if, yes, here we are. General Wesley Clark. Thank you. That's the one I was thinking about. Okay. So there's this very 7 countries in 5 years. This is the way around it went. Okay. So let me share my screen, because all of you guys need to know about this. So this was a very big revelation. Okay. And let me share my screen. So the interview about by Democracy Now! Of General Wesley Clark, and it says wars were planned, 7 countries in 5 years. In this interview, he says how he went to the Pentagon, you know, on a visit, and somebody ushered him into an office and said, "Sir, have you heard the news?" And he said, "What news?" And he said, his colleague in the Pentagon said, "We are to invade 7 countries in 5 years." Okay. Now, I analyzed this a long time ago, this video, okay? I'm not going to go through the analysis and what's wrong with this picture again, but one of the things is that General Wesley Clark says that, and he doesn't lose his legs. So in other words, it is actually gloating by the cartel, okay? And the other thing is it's 7 countries, the number 7. You know, that was their goal, to attack 7 countries. There you have an intel, you know, recognition signal again. There's much more to this video. But what I said is that I find it super fishy. I mean, just look at this guy, okay? So you have General Wesley Clark here, you know, give a presentation. And one of the things that I find just striking is that, to me, this so-called general looks like he walked straight out of an advert for Nespresso. Okay? And back in the olden days, generals were meant to be scruffy. I mean, typically they should have had at least a scar in the face for good measure. Okay? Or they should have a limb missing or something. Like Nelson, he was missing an arm, you know? Like something that showed that this guy had actually been through a battle. Well, when I look at General Wesley Clark, I'm sorry, I think the worst, he looks like the worst action he saw was Black Friday at Walmart. There's something, this just isn't right about this picture. Okay? Now, this is General Wesley Clark on one hand, okay? And then you know, go back and you get Bill Binney, who's actually missing both his legs. He lost both his legs in combat. Okay? And what I'm saying is, Bill is a general, Wesley Clark isn't, because he doesn't have the qualifications. Okay? I think General Wesley Clark is a fake general, which is why he can appear on Democracy Now! Joking about how, you know, the US intended to invade 7 countries in 5 years, immediately after 9/11, where most people couldn't tell their head from their ankles. And the Pentagon already knew, okay, we're going to invade 7 countries, right? Now, when you can come onto Democracy Now! And blow this wide open, first of all, you get a mainstream media platform. And then, you know, the presenter's even joking with you. And it's all presented like one big fat laugh. And you look like you're a guy from an espresso advert. That's when I start screaming bullshit. Okay? So I think this guy is a fake general. And my view is that this guy, Bill Binney, is a real general. And if you've got any doubts, well, it's look at the fact that he's got both his legs missing. Okay? It wasn't a bomb that ripped off his legs. It was the cartel, you know, poisoning him, making him lose both his legs. But then again, these are the ways of the cartel. And I remind everybody of the case of Wednesday Kennedy, okay? Wednesday Kennedy, where her father, right, when they forged the will, this is the case of elderly trafficking in Australia, the NCAT Super Tribunal and all that, right? When the will was forged, and I can say that because I've seen evidence that I am absolutely sure the will was forged, the signature was not the signature of John Bridges Kennedy. Absolutely not, right? I've seen the documents. So when the will, after the will was forged, right, what happened is that John Bridges Kennedy's right arm, the arm he uses to sign and write, started detaching from his body. He started losing his arm. How the fuck does that happen? Right? Well, it happens with a bioweapon. Okay. So what I'm saying is that this, in the case of, you know, Gwen Kennedy and John Bridges Kennedy, they are quite clearly the victims of the crime cartel. This is Australia, all the way across the planet in the United States and Washington, D.C., somebody gets poisoned, right? A math genius gets poisoned and loses both his legs. One man is about to lose his arm and then dies. There's a math genius who loses both his legs. So can you see the connection? And then on top of that, I had an expert witness who's also a court witness raise the issue with me that apparently after the disaster in Haiti and I think the disaster, Hurricane Katrina, people who were fine and they weren't particularly harmed after the hurricane started losing their limbs. That sounds like a bioweapon being deployed here to mutilate people and make them lose their limbs, okay? There are so-called flesh-eating bacteria, okay? But you have to be stupendously unlucky to get that. And also, you shouldn't really get that in a hospital, right? But that's exactly what happens. In other words, it makes it much more likely that the people in hospital who have control over your body because you're helpless, you're lying there, are giving this to you. Much more likely, right? So And my view is that for these reasons, you know, really, Bill Binney lost his limbs in battle. He is a real general. General Wesley Clark, forget it. All the other, you know, pseudo generals, they are cardboard cutouts. They are fake. And this is why we have currently these fake generals in charge of satellite weapon systems gunning their own population. NATO Satellite Space Command is gunning the Europeans. US Space Command is gunning the Americans in their own home, committing high treason. Are they generals? Fuck no. They are crime members. They are pimps. I don't know, drug dealers. They're something else, but they're not generals. So I'm always saying, if you're looking for the true generals in our society, look at the people who have, you know, have any physical scars. I mean, heck, I have got, you know, something branded on my forehead. General Wesley Clark, he doesn't even have any marks in his face, and he's meant to be a general. Like, where was he all this time? In an office? The worst thing he got was a paper cut, you know? So you guys have to start recognizing our true generals and really start following the right generals, right? Don't listen to the cardboard cutouts, really. And because, you know, with that face, the only thing that will do is sell you expensive coffee, you know? But anyway. So this is now you understand why you have to listen to these guys, but there's more, okay? Because there are total victories I want to report to you. And really, Bill and Kirk, they are total troopers. And the victories, right? I mean, first of all, any one of these interviews is a victory because they are getting the word out. So 94,000 people have already been informed. And let's face it, we all know that YouTube is manipulating these numbers down by at least a factor 10. So this means this is not 93,000, it's 930,000. Okay? When somebody like Bill and Kirk, you know, speak to the media, you can be sure YouTube is manipulating the view numbers. So it's at least a factor 10, but it can be up to a factor 100. So anywhere between 900,000 and 9 million people have now seen this video. And that, for one, is a total victory. Okay, please be one of these people who has seen the video. So please look this up. It's called President Trump Take the Key from Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe to End the Coup. Very important interview. And I'm so pleased to have an interview with Kirk as well, because this guy is exactly on target. What he says in this interview is spot on. Frankly, I want to have a weekly report from them, you know, from the two of them. But okay, so next, there is another bombshell video, okay, interview here. And this time, okay, this is the Bill Still report. And here, Bill Binney says that Brennan may have headed the coup. Very, very big news. In other words, in this interview, which is another bombshell interview that everybody should watch, right? And again, there are 34,000 views here, but there should be 3 million or more, 30 or 300 million. In this interview, Bill Binney actually puts his finger right on the issue. He says the Russia hoax, it was absolutely physically impossible for the Russians to do the hack, okay? It had to be somebody local. And the entire Russia hoax is so clumsy that it's not really the Russians. And Bill Binney is an expert on the Russians because during the Cold War, he was fighting the Russians and breaking their code, right? And their ciphers. So he is an expert on Russia, and he says something quite so bumbling he has never seen from the Russians. However, that's exactly what he expects from the CIA, right? So Bill Binney has said before that to him, it very much looks like it's the CIA, not the Russians. And now he actually put a name to it. It's Brennan. Okay, big deal. Total victory, because we now have a name for this. We now have a name for who headed the coup. And that for you, it's a victory because you have one of our generals go public and say it was the CIA, it was Brennan who headed the coup. Okay, big victory, because you now have this public testimony. Without these guys, you would be nowhere, but now you can put a name to the deep state. So please get behind this general and please support him. And please, should because he already lost both his legs, should he literally just have a mild flu, you have to go nuts at the CIA. Do you understand? And the head of the CIA is Gina Haspel, in my assessment, a complete psychopath. So you have to absolutely make sure that Gina Haspel understands that should anything happen to Bill Binney, that you will turn her into mincemeat, administratively speaking. And it's incumbent on you, Americans, to get this message across to your head of the CIA. Do you understand? Okay? Very important. But look at another victory in the United States. This time it comes from Donald Trump. The title of this video is called "Did You Say Treason?" Again, 96,000 views, which to me very much looks like it has been manipulated down. Now, I actually want to play this video, and I really hope that you can hear it. I'm on a new computer because my old computer got hacked, so I'm praying that you guys can hear it. So let me play this clip. This is a total victory. Look carefully or listen carefully to what your US president has got to say.
The Constitution says treason is punishable by death. You've accused your adversaries of treason. Who specifically are you accusing of treason?
Well, I think a number of people, and I think what you look is that they have unsuccessfully tried to take down the wrong person. You look at Comey, if you look at McCabe, if you look at probably people higher than that, if you look at Strzok, if you look at his lover, Lisa Page, his wonderful lover, the two lovers, they talked openly. You know, they didn't use their private server because they didn't want to get caught. So they used the government server. That was not a good move. He talked about the insurance policy just in case crooked Hillary loses. And that didn't work out too well for them. So you look at them, they want an insurance policy so that should she, for any reason, lose, remember, 100 million to 1. Maybe he said 100 million to nothing. But should she lose, we'll have an insurance policy and we'll get this guy out of office. And that's what they said, and that's what they meant. That's treason. That's treason.
No.
So, did you hear that? So, Donald Trump said treason. By the way, this footage and this news item was brought to you by the Praying Medic. And I really like the comments this guy's making. So, follow his channel. I think it's very, very good. But also I thank the investigator who passed me this video and gave me the heads up, because otherwise I would have missed this passage. But what the really, really absolutely astounding victory is that you have the President of the United States openly naming treason, openly acknowledging that, yes, treason comes with the death penalty, and saying names. Now, the reason why this is such a big, big victory, okay, and such a big deal, okay, and you have to understand what it really means, guys, especially if you are a victim, okay? Now, so the reason why this is such a big deal is the following. What you and I, if you're a victim, are really dealing with is not so much the attempted and failed coup against Donald Trump, because, hey, that doesn't really affect us directly that much, but it affects us indirectly, actually, in a quite an important way. What we are dealing with is people who are assaulting us physically, who are committing crimes against humanity, torture, enslavement, right? War crimes, because yes, there is a war, even though no war has been declared, but we are being assaulted by directed energy weapons, by weapons of war, right? Sorry, just give me a moment, because what I'm saying is going to be very important. By the way, my mug is not cartel signaling. I only have a few mugs left because in the housebreaking, Intel smashed a lot of my mugs. So these are the ones which are not completely chipped and intact. No cartel signaling. I know it's the color purple, but I like the mug when I bought it. And yes, I know it has hearts, but, you know, and here, oh, look, there's a pentagram. But it's not cartel signaling. I'm just thirsty. And actually, this was a present. So anyway, now, I'm saying this because Ramola said I was cartel signaling with my mugs, so I'm very self-conscious. But anyway, the reason why this is super important, and it's an absolutely stonking victory, guys, is because the President of the United States is now, you know, putting down the rail tracks, okay? So you are in German, you say Weichenlegen. So you are putting, you are turning the tracks. So the points where you can turn tracks, you are turning the path onto the right railroad track. Once you're on that, you're just traveling down there and there's no way to switch back. So this is why these points are very important. Now, when at these points, you set the direction for high treason, for the death penalty, right? All you need to do now, because the President of the United States has kicked the door open for you, the barn door open, is you just have to get in with your court cases and your evidence for crimes against humanity, which also are high treason, because it's Americans doing it to Americans, shredding the Constitution, shredding the rights of other Americans, right? Trying to take down the entire lawful Constitution and lawful government of the United States, and replacing it with satanic New World Order, foreign-controlled bullshit. That is high treason. So if your president uses the Russia hoax and rides ahead of you down the railroad track of high treason towards death penalties, all you need to do, guys, is get onto the bandwagon. Get onto the train. Do you understand? Now, Trump did something amazing because, number one, remember that after his inauguration, he was informed about crimes against humanity. And that was a wonderful letter that Ramola did. The memorandum to Donald Trump, she wrote that, and it was amazing. Now that got, actually delivered to Trump by means that, circumvented the Secret Service, which really pissed them off, and they were on Ramola's case trying to find out how she did that. But that was genius. Now, after that, Donald Trump came out, and actually, for those people who are new, because this happened last year, I want to remind you where you can find this information, because this is super important, okay? So as always, start with my website where I've indexed all this. Okay, let me share my screen. And okay, so let's start here, and you can read all about it. If you go to my website, this time you scroll down to the campaigns, which you will find here, Burning Down the House of Crime, okay? And when you scroll down, it's this one here, the memo to President Trump, the image with the White House. Now, this campaign is now closed, of course, but what it was, you can read the original memo that was sent to him shortly after his inauguration in January 2017, so 2 years ago. Okay, this is the letter that was drafted by Ramola. And what came out is that on the 23rd of February, so literally just a few weeks later, Donald Trump vowed to fight the human trafficking epidemic in this press conference. Big deal. Because talking about the human trafficking epidemic in just a few weeks in office is a big deal. Because that's what it is. Remote neuromonitoring and chipping is human trafficking. Directed energy weapon assaults on your body for weapons testing is human trafficking. You're being human trafficked into weapons testing programs, okay? Now, when a US president talks about the human trafficking epidemic in the United States, guess what he's talking about? He's not talking about the brothels that have always existed in the United States, right? Like, literally, people don't just wake up in the year 2017 thinking, oh my God, we're so surrounded by brothels and sex-trafficked women and children that this is an epidemic. Of course not, right? Because that has been the same. But what is new is the entire human trafficking for remote neural monitoring and all that. And that affects every American. Now, that is a human trafficking epidemic. Do you get it? And then he came out with executive order 13818, okay, 13818, and he came out on the 21st of December. And this was pretty much a Christmas present, okay? Because it came just before, so the last working day, or the second to last working day in office before the Christmas break. And in this, President Trump determined that serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States. And thereby, he declared a national emergency to deal with that threat. And this was his executive order blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse and corruption. Okay, now, when you read the executive order, which is included down there, right, one of the things that you should note is that it applies to foreigners. Now, what's up with that? So foreigners who are committing human rights abuses. So the first thing should be a disappointment. Oh, this executive order doesn't apply to the people inside the United States. No, the reason why it doesn't apply is because for those people inside the United States, the normal laws already apply. Do you understand? But what this executive order actually brings in, well, wait for it. It is to asset strip the Vatican. It is to asset strip the Vatican, because the Vatican is the biggest human trafficking organization. It's also foreign registered, right? But the Vatican is the superstructure behind all this. And then there are a million other people involved. There are the knightly orders, the Masons, and a million other transnational criminal organizations. And the good thing is, because they are not headquartered in the United States, the president has now declared that all their assets can be gotten if you can prove that they're involved in serious human rights abuses. Do you understand? So your president already in 2017 set it up, okay? He knew about all these abuses because he got the memo, okay? He then proved he got the memo by calling it the human trafficking epidemic that he vowed to fight. And then by the end of his first year in office, he brought out this genius piece of legislation, or this executive order rather, with which he literally, the American president and the American people can get hold of all the stuff the Vatican owns. Do you understand? Okay? And this goes hand in hand with what Kevin Annett is talking about the grand jury having found the Vatican to be a transnational criminal organization, which means that it forfeits its right to its property. Okay. Now, another thing that Trump did was to introduce the National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And that was January 2018. Do you understand? Now, this was proclaimed already on the 29th of December 2017, but he actually had a National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Big deal, okay? Big deal. Now, the issue is that in the sorry, it's up here, okay? Now, the issue is that in the meantime, okay, what really the president of the United States needs, because he can't do everything just by himself, what he needs is that he needs the Americans to get the hell on the case. Do you understand? You guys have to get on the case, and you need to start filing your court cases. You need to start filing for human rights abuses using exactly the keywords he put up for you: slavery, human rights abuses, human trafficking, and crimes against humanity, right? There you go. You just have to go in there. And the president has already set everything up for you. Okay? And this is why it's so important that all the victims now get their act together and start writing down their cases. I know it's overwhelming, which is why I designed the affidavit template. Okay? And I hope that by now I have proven to you that, you know, what you can do with the affidavit template. So for those people who are new, let me show it again very briefly. If you are a victim and you say, I want to get onto the Trump bandwagon of, you know, getting these motherfuckers for treason and crimes against humanity and the lot, and getting, you know, basically the assets of even the Vatican to pay me damages, well, what you can do is prepare your court case as quickly as possible. And if you want to have a leg up and break it down for you to make it simple, go to stop007.org, click on the first link under news, which is the affidavit collection, and fill out the affidavit that you can find here. Okay, follow the instructions, and here the middle bit is the affidavit and open office form. As soon as you have done that and you have submitted it, but you don't even need to submit it to me. It would be nice if you did, because you would have more ammunition, but you don't even have to do that. You just have to fill it out now. When you filled it out, you go here to the second link and you download all the other affidavits, okay? All the affidavits here, you can just click on it and get them. They're all PDF versions, okay? Every number that you click, you will get an affidavit that has been filled out. Also download my testimony confirming that every affidavit listed here has been submitted with photo ID, with a witness signature, under oath, with a statement of truth, okay? You can download all these affidavits, and then you can download these affidavit results here, where you can compare what you're testifying about and what stupidly high percentage of people is testifying about crimes identical to yours. And look, we already have 8 testimonies from the United States to back you up. 2 from Canada, 8 from the United States. So you are now in perfect position, okay, in the United States to actually get a court case going and start fighting back. And if you feel too exposed alone and you don't feel like you can start your own court case, it doesn't matter, because you can get a class action and get together with other people, okay? But I want you to understand the logic. I want you to understand the big wheels that are turning behind all these things and why it's such a victory when you have the President of the United States go public and say, yes, there's high treason, yes, the death penalty applies, and yes, we have to get these guys prosecuted. And he's naming names. This is unprecedented for US president. The last time this happened, okay, remember Eisenhower's speech about, yeah, it was Eisenhower's speech, right? Dwight Eisenhower's speech about warning about the military intelligence complex. He didn't dare name names. Do you remember JF Kennedy, right, who was murdered because, you know, he went up against the very same crime cartel? He didn't name names. He just said how secrecy is repugnant. Now, the only thing that trades in secrecy are the secret services and the secret societies, right? These are the guys he was talking about. He got murdered. He was shot to bits, right? Now, how many decades did you have to wait until the president comes out and he says there's high treason and he names names, right? That's a victory. You actually got your US president to name names and talk about high treason. And that opens the entire, you know, can of worms. And when you start opening the can of worms, you will have, you know, even more cans to open. And this brings me on to the next big victory in the United States. I would like to share with you the next link. I mean, I told you today is going to be a long broadcast because I have so much to tell you. It's stupid. All really good news. The other super good news, big bombshell investigation that will benefit you all, has been published by the American intelligence media. Okay, now this is the YouTube channel of the American intelligence media. Again, 95,000 subscribers. Why the fuck are there not 327 million? I don't know. Oops, I haven't subscribed. Damn, sorry about that. Always click subscribe and click the bell as well, okay? Because that means when you click the bell, you will get the notifications. Please do that with my channel too. Subscribe, right? But then if you click on videos, these guys are also working together with Michael McKibben, who is going after Facebook and the social media giants for stealing his intellectual property. Okay, it turns out that the software that allows big scaling, as is used by, for example, Facebook, is stolen intellectual property, stolen from Michael McKibben. Okay, I encourage you to listen to, first of all, Michael McKibben traced the intelligence crime cartel all the way back to London. This is this video called Unmasking the Five Eyes Beast. I've already mentioned that one. Okay, very important. The other thing from Michael McKibben to listen to is the Will They Go to Prison for Racketeering video. Oops, sorry. That is this one here. Okay, this one here with the Google image. And then there's a new one. Okay, there's a set of new ones about Facebook. Number one is Facebook Insider Confesses All. That's a very important video to watch. And the other one is Facebook Hurts Humanity into Cyber Prison, again with Michael McKibben. And sorry, I've just shot that again. So as you can tell, this is really explosive stuff. So please listen to this. But what I want to show you is, I think under this video here about Mark Zuckerberg, whose name isn't even Zuckerberg. There, I think under the video, there's a link, yes, to the American intelligence media website. And that is one huge bombshell expose. Okay. And this expose, I encourage you to read it, about the Facebook insider confessing it all. This is one Facebook insider who wrote a very long confession email. And it goes into the detail how Mark Zuckerberg, first of all, his real name is Mark Greenberg, not Zuckerberg. And Zucker in German means sugar. So basically, they renamed him Sugar Mountain. Okay. And how he is a fraud used by the CIA. This goes into the handlers of Mark Zuckerberg. It also explains how this guy isn't some brilliant genius. He is just apparently one big disorganized dope who can't even organize himself, let alone organize a big corporation. In other words, the entire software architecture, okay, comes from other people and has been put together by the American intelligence agencies, and he himself apparently was a child who was abused. His mother let him be abused, and he has apparently regular breakdowns about that. Hey, MK Ultra Monarch programming, anyone? Right? So he's basically an Illuminati programmed slave with handlers who can completely take him over, right? So that's who Mark Zuckerberg really is. He is a programmed drone who couldn't really graduate because he was too disorganized to hack his university degree. He isn't one tortured genius. He is just a cardboard cutout, right? And on top of that, other juicy nuggets are also that he is, what's it called? Bisexual. He basically, this confession sounds like he's shagging all and sundry, right? But that again, right? I don't want to have a dig at bisexuals. What I'm having a dig at is basically the sex and death cult that turns healthy young men into sex-obsessed, shagging everything machines. Okay, that's what I'm hinting at here. I'm not hinting at natural bisexuality, which I know exists, and there's nothing objectionable about that, because what you do in the bedroom is your own problem, right? Your own business, not mine. But when it becomes my business indirectly is when it is part of a program to destroy the natural sexuality of young people, and especially children, through rape, through trauma, to induce sex-obsessed split personalities to generate control files and to control their mind. And when you read this, it's very much sounds like this is what's happening here. Okay, but it's a very long expose with so many details, also including Nick Clegg, which the people in Britain will know very well, right? So Nick Clegg is involved here, and there's so much involved, it absolutely blows your mind. And this is the truth about Facebook, how it was actually pulled up by the American Intelligence Crime Agency, right, the Secret Crime Services. And also about here, you see Mark Greenberg, brackets Zuckerberg, did not write one single line of programming source code for Facebook. Those are lies and propaganda generated by his government military handlers. Now, an article like this is a total victory, because we now have success. Now, the other person mentioned here is actually so here, for example, Mark simply had others adjust the code into what was a government-sponsored military weaponization of his cyber warfare project directed by the president of Harvard, Larry Summers. Okay, Larry Summers, for those of you, right, out there who know Larry Summers might remember the very first time I heard about Larry Summers was in a completely different context, which is he became the president of Harvard, gave a speech and pissed off every woman on the planet. And he said, well, you can't expect women to compete in these, at these amazing things that men are doing, like become the president of Harvard, and, be at the leading edge of economics and physics and science and politics and the military and basically the entire fucking world, because simply women are incapable of working 80 or 90-hour weeks. Well, I'm sorry, Larry, I beg to differ. That's exactly what I'm doing and have been doing all my fucking life, you dope. But that aside, it's not personal at all. But he basically said, oh yeah, well, women, they can't hack it working so hard, and that's why women will never make it in the world of men. Really? So anybody who knows a working mom knows that when you have a working mom and a working dad, well, the working dad goes to work, comes home, is really tired, and is served by dinner typically made by the working mom, not in every family, but those families I know, right? So the working mom does work, does dinner, does cleaning, takes care of all the children, puts up with grumpy dad who's tired because all he had to do is work and come home, right? And does the entire show, right? So for anybody who knows how women have been working for the last couple of thousands of years, what Larry Summers says is absolutely a huge heap of steaming bullshit, right? So of course, Larry Summers got, a couple of eggs on his face when he said that, because you just became the president of Harvard, and you just, basically confessed you had your head up your ass and you don't really know how the world worked for the last couple of thousand years. It's a bit embarrassing. But anyway, so that aside, right, Larry Summers. And I actually, back then I thought, that guy sounds like a complete idiot, simply for the fact that if you actually think that, you would have to be that fucking stupid to actually say it out loud, right? And you don't just say it out loud, you say it out loud in your speech as a president of Harvard. I mean, you're very welcome to say it in your bedroom to your wife and then see what happens, right? See for how long you're going to end up sleeping on the couch. And you're welcome to say it to your mates down the pub, over a glass of whiskey. Sure, right? That's just being male. But when you're the president of Harvard and you're fucking stupid enough to say what you say out loud, I mean, that is one big fucking stupid dope, I thought, Okay, well, now I know these days that it's part of the humiliation routine that the Illuminati and cartel members have to go through. So they do have to say occasionally something that is horrifically stupid. And this is what Larry Summers has, for example, in common with Prince Harry in the British royal family, because Prince Harry also, I strongly believe, for the Illuminati, had to humiliate himself turning up in a Nazi outfit to a party, knowing full well it's going to be photographed by the press, and then, the rest is history. So these things are not hiccups, and, what they are is these guys with their stupid actions that are obviously totally moronic, satisfying the membership conditions in the cartel. They are kind of creating little control files because they have to create enough shit, right? They have to basically get themselves into really deep shit so that the cartel can come in and pull them back out. So the cartel basically would then, rally the entire media and somehow save the image of Prince Harry, proving to him that he really needs the media to lick his ass. And for that, he needs to lick cartel ass so that the cartel gets the media to lick his. Okay? Again, the ring. Do you remember what I said about the ring? Now, in the case of Larry Summers, he has to embarrass himself as the president of Harvard, saying something that's either totally moronic or totally psychopathic, basically letting his pants down in front of all these assembled women. And then he will rely on the cartel, fending off all these angry women and preserving his position as the president of Harvard, despite the fact that he just outed himself as either complete moron or complete psychopath, right? So that's how it works. But when I heard that back then about Larry Summers, I thought, right, this guy isn't quite full in his head one way or another. And yes, sure enough, he isn't. He's a CIA operative, okay? So my instincts were right, and all this deduction about Larry Summers and why he said it about women fits with this, okay? So he had to regenerate his control file back then. He had to get himself into deep shit so that the cartel could get him back out again. It's part of his contract, part of his, you know, having sold your soul to Satan and all this sort of stuff. And then don't be surprised when Larry Summers appears again in this story, and now it's about and what was it called? It was a military weaponized project of a weapon system. I mean, you know, it was this expression that had weaponized in it twice, you know. But so when it's about developing a weapon that's going to be set loose on the entire world, and there you have Larry Summers again, you can conclude that, well, you know, this is the second strike already. So we just have to look for the third strike. And it will be absolutely clear beyond the shadow of a doubt that Larry Summers is a cartel member. It's already clear now, right? But, you know, with the third one, you can finish him off. I can already predict that Larry Summers will have other control files. You know, just saying that women just can't work 80 or 90 hours per week is not that strong a control file, simply because the world is awash with misogynist dickheads. And just being another one is like being just another pebble at the beach, frankly. So I'm pretty sure he will have some sort of unsavory control file somewhere. So we have 2 strikes, so we can look for the third, which will be his control file. And I leave it up to investigators to find what that is. But we can have all an educated guess what that might be. It will most likely involve sex, most likely involve some sort of sadism. It might involve pedophilia. It might involve murder. No idea, but it will be something along those lines, because the cartel that he's a member of is a sex and a death cult. So whatever the control file will be, it will be not about poetry. It will most likely be about fucking and killing. Okay, that's simple. So anyway, the big victory about Facebook now being blown up, you know, Michael McKibben getting ready to sue the ass off these social media giants for his intellectual property. Read the details and read on the website of the American intelligence media how the software was stolen, because they used a law firm, right, that Michael McKibben was using to steal the intellectual property, which is echoing exactly the case of Charles VII in the United Kingdom, right, so-called Seven Gate. Yeah, I know, Seven Gate, I know, but still, in the case itself, right, you have exactly this thing of, I think it was Bindmans, or I think it's Bindmans, the law firm in the Seven Gate case, which was involved with the intellectual property theft. So it's exactly the same. You can exactly see the same template play out in the United States and in the United Kingdom. What's the connection? Well, it's the Five Eyes, right? The Five Eyes crime syndicate. They're using the same template around the world. That's what it is. So huge victory, okay? And after you read this article, you can all think about, you know, basically saying goodbye to Facebook now, you know. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you, there's more good news. I'm sorry, can you still continue? I want to cram all this in one big broadcast. I'll make it contents in the end. The other really big good news is that now ITV News has come out with a documentary, not a documentary, a report about gang stalking. Now, it's good news and bad news, okay? So here, this is ITV News about gangs on a gang stalking special. Federal, state, local criminal snitches who stalk and harass daily. Now, in my view, what this is, it's a halfway house of the media. It's basically a covering your ass exercise. They want to say, oh, yes, I mean, this came out on the 29th of May, 2019. And what they want to say is, oh, look, but we have reported about gang stalking. We're not covering up crimes against humanity because, look, we have this little documentary about gang stalking in Australia using covert spy glasses. I mean, this guy who filmed this, right, these gang stalkers using mobile phones, he himself is using covert spy glasses, or her, whatever. But when you watch this video, okay, it's about one gang stalking victim and how she started being gang stalked, how it all started, and so on. So it's a 4-minute clip from that report. There are a few things wrong with this, okay? And you can watch it yourself, and I can also tell you what's wrong with this straight away, because it doesn't mention the human intelligence network system. Here it says, oh, it's local criminal snitches. But it doesn't say, you know, these snitches are in the employment of the government. They kind of hint at it because they say federal, state, and local. Okay. And I think this is actually the YouTube video. This is actually the person who uploaded it. Okay. So it's maybe not even in the original. But when you listen to this, it very much is made to sound like that the woman who is reporting about the stalking she suffered, okay, that is the lady whom you can see here, okay, she's reporting gang stalking, but it is made to sound like one really obsessive guy hired a gang of people to stalk her. And what this is playing on is the following. This is playing on this word gang stalking so that people think it's a street gang. No, it's not. It's just a gang of people, not a street gang. And the other thing is it's playing on this, oh, obsessive, you know, maybe love interest, one obsessive fruitcake person, you know. That is not what it is. These are government programs. And the way you can tell that it's actually this woman is suffering from a government program and that ITV News is covering up things, crimes against humanity, despite their best attempts at us covering. I know. In last broadcast, I was really exalted about this, reportage. But since then, I watched it to the end, and then I was massively disappointed. So when I watched it to the end, I realized, okay, that's what they're doing. They're setting this up. Yes, they are reporting about gang stalking, but it's about gangs. And it's about one obsessive person. It's not about Australian intelligence. Okay. Now, the moment when you can tell that there's something wrong with that picture that ITV News is trying to portray is when you hear that the lady was stalked all across the country, that she was stalked by so many people in so many different places, so around the clock that it is absolutely physically impossible for one person to find a street gang quite that big, right? So who exactly in Australia has a surveillance network that would be big enough? I think Australian Domestic Intel is the only organization who has something like that big enough to pull that off, right? It's not hard. And then even if it weren't Australian Intel, even if there were some shadowy, like, citywide, nationwide syndicated crime network was offering, stalking services to sad saps somewhere in Australia, right? Even if that were the case, it would be so big and include so many people that Australian Intel would have to know about them, right? Because we know that Australian Intel is part of the Five Eyes, which is using the NSA surveillance of every telecommunication device in the world. So if there were a mysterious network syndicated across the entirety of Australia, and Australian Intel wouldn't know about them, well, it just doesn't work, does it? Right? So either the head of domestic intel in Australia is in deep shit because it's his human intelligence network doing this bullshit stalking, or the head of Australian intel is in deep shit because he's so fucking incompetent that there's a nationwide crime network that is offering public stalking services to Joe Average, and he's so fucking dumb he can't even work it out with one of the most powerful intelligence networks in the world. Actually, not one of the most powerful, the most powerful, right? I mean, these are the only two options left to the head of domestic intel in Australia. Is he dumb as fuck or is he corrupt as fuck? There is no in between. And both of those options, the only two he has, lead to his resignation eventually, forced resignation, and to him being charged in court, right? Because he is running a seditious network engaged in crimes against humanity against the Australian people, or there is a seditious network running crimes against humanity against the Australian people, and the head of Australian domestic intel is so fucking incompetent that he doesn't know about it and can't even work it out, even though there's a report about it on ITN News. Really? So you have the Five Eyes all the way down there in Australia, right? With all their NSA, you know, surveillance, this, that, and the other. And you have apparently the report about the huge organized crime network on ITV News. And then this guy can't work out what I just worked out in my little, you know, office here in Switzerland, right? So we have now reached the point in the game where whatever, they have no chess moves left. They are just fucked, basically, okay? So the good news is that ITV News has put out this, you know, this reportage, you know. On the one hand, it's an attempted cover-up, but the good news is, the victory is that it's such a shit attempt of cover-up that they actually managed to get the head of domestic intel in Australia into really deep shit. Isn't that a victory? I mean, you know, they just do it to themselves. Isn't it wonderful? But anyway, so that is a huge victory, okay? So even in when they cock up something absolutely fantastically, even then there's a silver lining. Now, more than that, I've got more good news for you, right? And the good news just keep coming. The other thing that I also want to show you is that another victory, actually, this is a victory from a bit, you know, older, but at the time, I just didn't, I tweeted it out. I didn't mention it in one of my broadcasts, and then I lost the tweet, and then they suspended my Twitter account. But now I have found again what I wanted to show you. A big victory was, and this was, again, I didn't find this, investigators passed this to me, okay? So with investigators, I don't even know if they are professional, if they were private. Some investigators who said, hey, Katherine, look at this, okay? So this is how it works. And these guys, or this person, has unearthed the eye implants, okay? Do you remember the eye implants that I was talking about? So you shine ultraviolet light into your eye, and then somewhere, maybe I can make this bigger. In, can I blow this up? Okay, so this is the eye, okay? This is the transparent bit on the eye. That is your iris. And this is the implant that is sitting there. So this is why when you're shining ultraviolet light, what you see light up green is this surface here. And this is why it's a few millimeters behind the pupil. That is the stuff that has been put into your eye, okay? And look at this thing. It's somehow hanging on. You can see these things there that most of us probably wish we don't know what the fuck they are, okay? Now, this is basically put into the eye, okay? And you've got these clamps. Maybe that's what's holding them in place. Who knows? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what has been placed into your eye if your pupils light up green, okay? Now, this is from an article, okay, called Ophthalmics is an eye implant with the power of continuous AR, whatever the hell that is, right? They probably explain it here, of AR. They don't define the acronym. Anyway, please read this, okay? This is from TechCrunch here. And now, first of all, also download this image for your court case, but it also says the company Omega Ophthalmics is manufacturing this, okay? Omega Ophthalmics also has an advert. Now, first of all, Omega Ophthalmics, can you see the all-seeing eye? I mean, then you say, yes, okay, but it's eye products. But then I say, yeah, but we have two eyes, don't we? Why do they always just show one, right? Why do they always just show one? Now, that's one indication that this is a cartel company. The other hint comes from Omega. Okay, now Omega, since time immemorial, has been the recognition, or the cartel recognition symbol for the head of the mafia, as in the top of the Vatican crime cartel. And it comes from this phrase in the Bible, I am Alpha and Omega. When I think in the Bible it refers to God, but you need to know that the Bible is a brainwash manual that has been basically edited and is, being printed by the Vatican crime cartel. Okay, so that passage in their language, in the covert double meaning, is referring to the head of the mafia, to the head of the organized crime cartel. And I'm Alpha and Omega says, I am going to follow you throughout your entire life. So Alpha, the first letter of the Greek alphabet, to Omega, the last letter of the alphabet. It means that from A to Z, the cartel is there and watching you and following you your entire life from birth to death. Okay? Now, when you have Omega ophthalmics, first of all, it's the final stage, Omega, the end of your life, right? But also you have now a double cluster. So you've got the all-seeing eye and then Omega, right? Combined with ophthalmics. Now, I think it is in this little video, they explain to you how these eye implants work, okay? And where it goes and how the whole thing is working, okay? And I think later on they're also showing lens structures. But basically what I'm saying is have a look at this video. Sorry, it's the loading has just stopped working. But have a look at this video and then also watch. Here is a little video where they show how a needle goes in and injects through the lens, injects this into the eye. Okay, this is what has been done to you guys and has been done to me. Somebody pierced our eye and put this thing in. Okay, if your pupils light up green under ultraviolet light, somebody broke into your bedroom and did this procedure to you. So watch the video, companies to watch, Omega Ophthalmics. Get this on YouTube. Okay, now as you can tell, hang on, I'll try to refresh the page. Maybe I can get this video to work because it's very important. I will switch off the music and I will jump to here somewhere. Okay, that's how they put in the sensor system. And what they're saying is that once you have this thing in, you can keep loading this and keep, this is how they do the projections when you see aliens. You can either see alien eyes or you can see these little, biosensors. So this is turning you all into super soldiers. But what I want to show you is how they inject this thing in the first place, okay? Hang on, I'm just, oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. So this is the Gemini refractive capsule. And then they pierce, okay, this layer and they put that in. Did you see that? Let me show you again. I'm sorry, this is disgusting. If you're squeamish, it's really not very good. Look away. But this is what has been done to you, okay? That's the lens. A refractive capsule that you can load with sensors, okay? They inject it through this transparent bit. It pops out of the needle and pops into shape. And then, it's completely transparent, but it can do drug delivery, biometric sensors, and it shows you how it injects these biometric sensors into the eye, right? Can you see this? And this is a real company. And this image you will recognize from, here they show how you can put in all sorts of other stuff, right? Lenses and things, right? And you can, have these little circuitries there as well. Fucking freak show. But once you have this cavity holder in your eye, they can just have little screens, okay? So what this person sees is a little computer screen, but it's overlaid over your eye. But nobody says that they just have to do this little graphics. They could also show you images of aliens coming into your room. Do you understand? So all those people who have so-called hallucinations, no, guys, they've got fucking eye implants. And the way to check is you take a $10 or €10 ultraviolet torch and you check their eyes. Okay, so this is a total victory that we now have the link. It's called Omega Ophthalmics. Okay, and thank you to the investigators who found this, because it's a total breakthrough. And another point I would like to make is that it's not just a breakthrough, okay, guys? What it also is, you know, it should be make you pause for thought, right? Oh, somebody posted in the chat, AR is augmented reality. I don't think it's augmented. I think it's augmented. But anyway, thank you. Yes, you're right. AR is augmented reality. Thank you, guys. And what you should also think is that this is, you should pause and think, hang on. If this company is now putting out adverts in the year 2019 for this clearly military technology, and the classification period is typically 50 years, in what year would you say were they first developed, right? 50 years ago. So we're talking 1969, right? I hope I didn't screw up the maths. So it means that in 1969, they had this developed at the end of the 1960s, and all throughout the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, the 2000s, all the way to the 2010s, because we're now at the end, all the people who saw alien landings and alien abductions and greys and reptiles and people with reptilian eyes, they had this fucking technology and then didn't know about it. Right? Right? Okay, so when we finally hear about this military technology, we can go back in time and we can suddenly say, hang on, this shit must have been going on for 50 years. Where are the victims? And what sort of victims do we expect? Right? We expect victims who see stuff that is inexplicable. Interesting patterns, aliens, 2-meter spiders, you name it, or say things like, I close my eyes, I go to bed, and I'm shown footage from ritual sacrifice. Right? All these people exist. And what they have is these eye implants. And for every case, there's first of all somebody who's come into their flat at night, who has implanted their eyes, who has taken over their life, who has enslaved them for human experimentation, right? And also for psychological warfare, for the testing of this modern technology, right? And then there's an entire architecture. Somebody pointed out in the chat, they have handlers. Yes, and those people have their handlers who have their handlers. So for every single victim who we find, there's an entire huge tower of perpetrators. Somebody says, would an ordinary eye test find these? I don't think so, because these things are perfectly transparent. And that's partially also because if you match the refractive index of this cavity holder with the refractive index of the liquid in your eye, then it becomes invisible, because light is not scattered or broken when it's traversing the surface. And you have this effect, for example, if you throw real diamonds into water, they disappear. Suddenly you can't see the diamonds anymore, because the refractive index of diamonds and of water is very similar. So you suddenly make diamonds disappear in water. This has been used in countless, detective stories and stuff like that. But that's the principle. So even if you've got this big bloody cavity holder, right, stuck in your eye, you can't see it, and it can't be seen from outside. But if you change the frequency away from visible light to ultraviolet light, that thing will become visible. And that's what you see. And this is why you have a surface just a few millimeters behind the opening reflecting bright green. Okay. So now, okay. I'm just reading the chat. Okay, so this is good news. Okay, so now let me just in a quick gallop, go through. I've shown you this stuff. I've shown you the eye implants, a total breakthrough, a total victory for your court cases. Right. I think I'm done. There's some more things I wanted to say, but I'm going to say that next time because I think I have gone through all the big victories that we had. Okay. So now to recap, the really big victories that we have right now is that Donald Trump, right, is openly talking about high treason, about the death penalty, about naming names as the first president ever, naming names. And he also said that there are some people who go higher than, for example, Comey, the former head of the FBI, whom he named. Big deal, right? So now Trump is really starting to go after these people. As you know, I said, well, Trump is also a Mason, so he is kind of in there. He has to be because he's a billionaire. But I also said that all the billionaires who have their heads screwed on will have figured out that the cartel wants to asset strip them in this next round of asset stripping. So any billionaire worth his salt, Mason or non-Mason, right, will have to go up against the crime cartel. And that's exactly what we see. Okay, so this is a super, super development. And all the victims can jump straight onto that bandwagon because, yes, you do have crimes against humanity. Yes, you have evidence of treason. And yes, you can use all the executive orders and all the mechanisms that the president has put in place for you. What you need to do is you need to get your act together and you need to please, please start filling out your affidavit. If you're not in the United States, you too can use what President Trump has just done. Because remember, you can always litigate in the United States, right? You can litigate against the company using the mechanisms of the United States. For example, if you gang up with victims who suffered exactly the same in the US, right? Or you can litigate in your home country, referring to those the litigation against the very same companies in the US, right? So there's 1,000,001 ways how to do it, and you need to get, some good lawyers, and yes, they do exist because I've just seen one last Friday. You need to get them on the case, and you need to actually show them that, yes, there's the backing of humanity behind them. Okay, then remember the other big breakthrough is that, Bill Binney himself is naming names. He's named Brennan and the CIA as the most likely, culprits behind this entire coup against Trump, which, remember, is not too surprising. Remember how I said that the CIA is the Crown Corporation, the Crown in America, right? NSA is also owned by the Crown Corporation. However, the NSA is staffed also by math geniuses and computer geeks, right? Those people typically work very, very hard. The people in the CIA, not that much. They're more kind of the human trafficking, drug running sort of people. And when you get the computer geeks and the mathematicians on the case, I think when they realize that this shit is happening, a lot of them, right, there's also cartel members there as well, of course, but a lot of them will get very annoyed, will think, why the hell am I working this hard while these people are just, screwing their whores and taking cocaine and, running the country into the ground. And then most importantly, when you get the people with computer skills and the math geniuses and other types of geniuses on the case, they can go off like a rocket, right? And that's what I'm banking on. Remember, Gareth Williams worked for GCHQ and he was murdered on the job working for MI6. That's, again, the same setup as NSA versus CIA, GCHQ versus MI6, right? So there we are. Now, these are all good news, good news, okay? Also, even though I was attacked by the Adult Protection Agency here in Switzerland, they did it in such a skilled way that they timed it with an attack on my client. So I can now get them into really deep shit, which I'm looking forward to doing. But as always, I will need your help because these people have the power, apparently, to go above the highest court. Now in my canton, they weaseled themselves into a court, which is totally illegitimate. So I need your help, campaigning to get possibly get me the hell out of this problem. But you can help me campaigning again by filling out an affidavit. So if you're in Switzerland and you speak English and you can fill out an affidavit, please do so now because I need your help. Okay, so there we are. This is all I wanted to say. I have talked for a stupidly long time now. And I shall call it a day here. And I hope this was all worthwhile. I will write an index later on so that you can get all these news. But that's it, you know, for the week. It was a big celebration of victories. And I'm looking forward to the next week, you know, starting tomorrow, which hopefully will see even more big victories. Please help us all. Please support me on patreon.com or go to Invest in Progress on my website. And please support me financially because I will have bigger expenses coming up. So thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful Sunday and bye for now.